President or myself. I'm the chair, Rebecca Lisi, City Councilor at Large. I'm also joined by the Vice Chair, City Councilor Juan Anderson Burgos, representing Ward 6. We have Councilor, or should I say our acting mayor, Councilor Terry Murphy from Ward 2, Councilor Linda Vacan from Ward 5, and from Ward 4, Councilor Libby Hernandez. We can move to the public hearings and take up item number 1A and 1B on the agenda. Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can we go out of order to take up item 19 and dispose of it? A lot of us have gotten a call about this. It shouldn't take long because as a point of order, this order isn't in the proper structure to act upon in committee anyway. It needs to come before us through another path.
So there needs to be a motion to suspend the necessary rules and take up item number 19 out of order.
So moved.
Is there a second? So Councilor Murphy seconded it. Okay, so motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed?
No.
No. I'll vote with the noes to stay in regular order on 19. Back to regular order, items 1A and B. We should take them up as a package. Is there a motion?
Second. So moved. Sorry.
The motion has been made and seconded to take up items number 1A and 1B as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. This is a public hearing for a special permit application for a marijuana retail and manufacturing establishment of Green Highland LLC to build and operate marijuana retail, cultivation, and processing establishment at 26 Hadley Mills Road, along with a letter from VHB requesting correction of a traffic study on 26 Hadley Mills Road. I believe we got a communication from the applicant asking that this public hearing be continued. Jeffrey, do you have that communication?
Yeah, I can send that around.
Yeah, I don't think you need to send it around as long as we could just have a copy to put in the jacket with this, set of files.
Sure. And I did speak with him today, and he said it would be okay to continue to the 27th.
Madam Chair?
Is that how, Councilor Greenie?
Yeah, Councilor Greenie, Councilor Sullivan, and Councilor McGivern are present at this meeting.
Thank you. Councilor Greenie is here, Councilor McGivern is here, Councilor Sullivan is here, and that's it for the councilors. Thanks for pointing that out. So we should continue this. I think continuing to the 26th, the 27th of this month. I suppose that's not really what I'm interested in doing based on the other things that we have slotted in for that agenda. We could probably go to the 11th of May.
No crisis to be April 27th, right? It's not mandatory or imperiling them, right? I mean, go to May, it's not causing any great hardship. So I think going to May makes sense.
Yeah, I think May is a better date. So we're looking at May 11th at 6:30 p.m. If I could get a second for that.
Second.
5/11 at 6:30 p.m. The motion has been made and seconded to continue this public hearing to May 11th at 6:30 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Item number 2 is a public hearing for a special permit application for Mass Biology Technology LLC to build and operate a marijuana cultivation and processing establishment at 6 Appleton Street. So we need a motion to take this up off the table and open the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So I think that I saw a hand from Denise Tice. Denise, is this you, this application here?
Actually, thank you for hearing us tonight, Councilor Lisi. Yes, we have four participants here for mass biology. There's myself, I'm a cannabis consultant. The owner of the facility is Kihan Zhang. He is also on the
He's
phone
not
with
coming
us.
through.
Okay, so it's not just me.
No.
You can't hear me?
It's a little choppy. It's a little choppy.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I should go on the phone. Can you hear me better now?
This is fine, yes.
Okay, great. So I will mention again that we have Kihan Zhan on. He is the owner of the property at 6 Appleton Street. We have attorney Isaac Fleischer on, and we also have civil engineer Terry Reynolds on, who will be sharing the screen with some of the presentation.
Great.
What we're proposing is to establish a cultivation and manufacturing facility at 6 Appleton Street. It's a approximately 69,000 square foot facility. We're going to restore it. It was an old paper mill, 4 floors, and we would like to do it in 2 phases. We will have 3 floors of cultivation and 1 floor of manufacturing. We have also set up loading docks, one in the rear of the facility, closer to the riverside. We'll have a secure sally port for all deliveries that will come in through that area. There's a front loading dock area that will strictly just be for office supply.
And Denise, you are starting to break up again. So I wonder if we should just pass it over to
Terry, can you take it?
Terry Reynolds as the, I believe, architect,
The civil
All right.
engineer.
Can you hear,
civil
can
engineer.
you hear
I'm
me
sorry.
okay?
Yes, you're coming through fine, Terry. Thank you.
All right. So, yeah, so what she was talking about were the loading docks. So there's why don't I put up a plan if I can share it?
Do you have the screen share capability?
It looks like I do. All right. So, so this is the layout plan. And so this is the secure Sallyport area, this fenced area in the back here. This is the building, number 6 Appleton. Will be a gate back here with a security detail. So deliveries and shipping will come and go through this gate. So there's a shipping and receiving area here where any marijuana related business will happen. There's also a dock in the front of the building here where paper products, soil items of that nature, actually it's right here, non-marijuana products can be received there. So this project basically, as Denise said, is 4 floors, 3 floors of cultivation. The basement floor will be manufacturing and processing. So this will be served with basically box truck service. And if there were to be any sort of tractor trailer use that would come in to Appleton Street and then back out and leave that way. The project involves, it has, I believe 22 spaces proposed, 19 or 17 along the building with a new handicap space, a handicap ramp and a landing at the doorway. The rear area has a dumpster pad for waste materials, transformer pad, additional dumpster here for marijuana waste, generators location, and a CO2 pad in back, plus 5 additional spaces if needed for parking. the transformer is intended to be a diesel transformer. That pad will be modified with a impervious liner around it to contain any spills. And it will, obviously need to meet whatever fire code the fire department requires. At this point, they haven't sized the actual transformer so that what that containment area looks like will vary depending on the size of that transformer. In addition, we've got HVAC equipment being proposed in the alleyway between the building. And then with operations for the facility are proposed to be 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 at night. During construction, it'll be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. For construction purposes. The site itself, no utility changes are currently proposed. The site will have lighting. It'll have security lighting around the perimeter of the building just to illuminate it, and basic safety lighting for the parking areas. I think that's basically it for now. Open it up to any questions.
I am going to just start with a really quick question. It's kind of a basic question. The building, the edge of the building is sort of like jagged, and that's where the transformer and the dumpster and the generator is all located.
These areas, yes.
Mm-hmm. And then where is the front door?
The front door is here.
Okay. Okay, so all these pieces of equipment are sort of out of the way from general traffic.
They're all located in the Sallyport area.
Mm-hmm.
So we have car parking here. There is a bike rack proposed in the grass area here. There's a newly planted shrub, and that's about the only green space we have on the site. So no additional landscaping is proposed here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then the 5 parking spaces that are beyond the gate, is that for employees only, or is that going to be public access?
No, it wouldn't be public access. It would be employees only.
Okay. And then just one more really quick question. Why is there a need for the generator and transformers outside of the building?
If the power to go out for any extended period of time, they want to have a backup generator.
Okay. All right. Are there other questions from committee members as I pull up the review from the planning board? From the planning department, rather. And because my view is limited here, I might need some help if there are hands up.
You want me to stop the share?
We'll leave it up because I'm sure that people will have questions for it. I see Councilor Murphy, and I'll just ask the committee to help me recognize people that I don't see. Councilor Murphy, you could go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. So I'm assuming the first, if I think I heard correctly, there's 4 stories, but the first 3 are going to be cultivation and the top story is going to be production?
No, the top 3 will be cultivation, the bottom will be production.
Okay, so is the bottom part coming the last part of what's going to happen here?
This is proposed in 2 phases. So the basement, the production area, and the second floor will be phase 1.
Okay.
And then the following 3rd and 4th floors will be phase 2.
Okay, and is most of the production going to be from what was cultivated?
Yes.
Okay, and are you aware of how many employees we're talking?
The anticipated amount is about 25 employees per shift.
Per shift. Total, once everything's done or right away?
That is a good question. I put that back to
Denise.
Yes.
Denise.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Much
oh,
better.
great. Okay. So 25 is when it's in full operation. When we first open, it will ramp up, probably starting with about 3 to 4. And then as the rooms develop and the plants are grown and get into harvest and then manufacturing, we'll be adding people on. But at the beginning of production, it will just, beginning of planting, it's just really babysitting the plants. So we don't need as many employees. We'll have security there as well.
And you'll be reaching out to Holyoke residents, especially in that area if
Especially.
possible? Okay,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
okay, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
So I'm just going through the review letter, and it looks like you were able to address all of the issues that were raised. I know that you wanted to make an amendment about the bike rack and another amendment for one other piece.
Yeah,
Is that what you
so from the original submittal, we did add the bike rack here.
said?
So planning had specified, that's something they really would like to see on all these sites. So we have incorporated that. In addition, one of the engineering comments was that the fence back here originally was pushed back to allow a little more room for snow storage on the grass area. And that ends up going across the sewer easement, which is a 15-foot wide easement on the back of the property. So we've moved the fence out of that easement area.
Okay. And then the other thing that I'm seeing here is that there was a typo. You want a 6-foot fence as opposed to an 8-foot fence. And can you just point that out for us on the plan?
Right. The gate was listed as 8 feet high and it was intended to be 6.
Okay, great. And these are the plans that the planning department has in hand at the moment, or would these need to be submitted to the clerk as the final set of plans?
These will be submitted as final set.
Okay. I see Councilor McGivern and Councilor Sullivan have hands up, so I welcome Councilor McGivern to speak. You're on mute, I think, Joe.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Green share just messes me up real bad. Sorry. Through the chair, just a quick question on the parking for employees, especially at the change of shift. Where will they all be parking?
They'll generally be parking along the building on Appleton Street.
You've got about 17 spaces there, though.
Yep.
So you got 25 people working, 25 people coming in. What do you do?
So we expect some will carpool. There are five additional spaces in the back. We have a total of 22 spaces. And you know, there may not be 25 exactly at every shift either. So we're hoping that, you know, weather permitting, some people will be riding to work, some people will be carpooling, and so on. And if there is an additional need for extra parking, there is public parking across the way between Water Street and Canal.
Everybody and their neighbors proposing to use that additional parking, including some trucks from over on South Canal Street.
Right. Currently, that parking lot's used about at half capacity, but if
Currently,
we needed additional parking, we're only talking 2 or 3 cars.
when you change shifts, though, you're going to have a logjam.
I would put that to Denise in terms of how that works. I'm guessing that you're not going to have everybody emptying out and coming in at exactly the same time.
Exactly. These are staggered shifts that go on. It's not necessarily 8 to 4 and 4 to midnight or whatever the operating hours are. So in general, we could have 25 employees, but that does not mean that they would be coming in all at the same time and leaving all at the same time. And there's various days where they could be 4 days on, 3 days off, depending on how the cultivation manager wants to set up the schedule to watch the plants and harvest the plants. So I don't anticipate it being like leaving a sporting event where everybody leaves at the same time and people trying to come in. It's going to be staggered throughout every day, and especially on weekends.
Denise, on shipping and receiving days, hours, how do you handle that? You got 2 docks?
Excuse me, we have two docks. Well, we have one dock. It depends on what the product is. If it's a marijuana product, it will be going into the back loading dock. If it's just general office supplies, it won't even come into the driveway. It would be along Water Street where the actual dock is on that side. And deliveries really wouldn't be, or actually we wouldn't have a lot of deliveries. It'd be more of us leaving because we're going to be cultivating our own plants. So the trucks will be leaving to go deliver the product out to someone. It would be very rare to have marijuana products come into the building since we're cultivating our own.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question for Mr. Reynolds. The generator you're proposing, you said that was going to be a diesel generator?
What's being proposed, yes.
Any particular reason why you chose a diesel generator with all the new technologies that are coming out?
No, that's just what that's not my selection. That's the mechanical group, and it's not even completely firm as far as I know.
Okay, so they would be open to consider some other type of generating system?
Oh yeah, I would, yeah. Us and Neil are designing that aspect of the building.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to continue on this line of questioning about the generator, because I do see that the planning department has asked very specifically if the fire department has reviewed this proposed generator. And now that we know that it's going to be diesel fuel, where would the fuel be stored?
So the fuel is in, it's contained within the generator area, as far as you know. I have an image of what it would look like. If I can get back to it. Come on. Lost you. I can get back to my screen. This is bear with me. Here it is. So this setup, can you all see this?
Yep.
So this would be the generator pad. And basically it's got a containment system that's built around the pad with the geomembrane that extends around. And then it's got a curbing that goes around that. And so this inner area is a fully geomembrane contained area. It's filled with stone, and then the outside is just bermed up to it. So this is the containment area. So this would be sized according to the actual diesel tank or whatever fuel storage that they have feeding the generator.
So I think,
and that obviously will also have to, meet fire code and be approved by the fire department.
right, and I think that it's probably appropriate to ask that become a condition of the special permit here.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so I know about the bike rack, the generator. We amended the fence piece. Are there other questions from committee members?
Councillor McGivern has his hand up again, or did you forget to take it down?
No, haven't taken it down, Councillor Anderson. Thank you.
You're good.
Thank you. And then one more question, Terry, if you will. I don't see in the review letter anything about the parking spaces. So do you know how many are required by the ordinance I heard you say 19 earlier, I believe. So you have a surplus, but I'm unclear about whether that is the number that you need per the ordinance.
I think you're correct. It is. I do have it listed on the plan here. Oh, maybe I don't. I believe it is. Oh, that's it. That's why. Let me get the right plan up.
Could I just ask one more question, Madam Chair?
Sure. While we're waiting for the screen to come up,
Yeah.
go ahead, Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it is 25 total employees, not 25 employees per shift, correct?
No, it's 25 per shift.
Okay.
Yeah. Required park. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And
No, I was gonna ask Denise to just confirm that so that we're all on the same page.
Yes, when it's in full operation, all 4 floors, it would be 25 per shift.
Okay.
and how many shifts, Denise?
Right now with the 8 to 8 standard hours that are permitted, it would be 2 shifts.
So we're talking 50 employees.
Mhm.
And if we go where we are considering expanding the hours for cultivation, what would you expect for employees then?
Probably then another, to run another shift, it probably would end up being maybe about 15 to 20.
15 to 20 more?
Yes. Mhm.
So somewhere between 65 and 70 then.
Correct. That's when all 4 floors are in operation. Mhm.
Okay, and then I just want to make one last appeal, if any way possible. I know you're not using the emergency generator very often, but air quality in the lower wards has been terrible. And if we've got alternatives that could provide less potential damage than diesel, then if there's any way of looking into that, I would certainly appreciate it, both from a health standpoint and an environmental standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Terry, did you find the required number of parking spaces?
Yeah, I believe I'm sharing it right now.
My Zoom view may be blocking it.
Okay.
So
well, anyways, it's 9 spaces is what's currently required under zoning.
9 is required under the zoning for the first phase or total project?
It's per shift, so 25 employees divided by 4.
Okay, I see. Now underneath it has you have the calculation. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so then at 22 spaces, you're well above the requirement. And I see our legal counsel, Crystal Barnes, has her hand up. Crystal, did you want to clarify something here?
Yeah, there's been sort of a back and forth email about the parking situation because there's an ownership dispute right now with Holyoke Gas and Electric. It is noted in their response to the letter that was drafted from proposals from other departments that they are in the process of securing ownership rights to the parcel that a lot of their parking is on, and that they anticipate that all of their ownership rights will be secured. And I believe you have this letter as well. I think it makes sense to have that as part of the conditions rather than just in these outside letters. We just want to make sure that the parking is situated, that the ownership is, that they have site control of the property that they need to make this permit valid.
We're very comfortable with that as a condition.
Okay, thank you for that, Crystal. Okay, are there other comments from committee members or other counselors? I'm doing a quick run through here. Seeing none, we should allow the public to speak. So are there any members of the public who'd like to speak either for or against this project? And again, I'm running quickly through the screen here, but if I miss you, please let me know. Okay, I see none. I think we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing then.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I would offer to entertain a motion that we approve the special permit with the conditions that a bike rack be added, the generator be approved by the fire department, and if possible, another fueling source be used. And that the applicant obtains site control of the area slated for parking. Are there other conditions that anybody would like to add from the committee? Okay, so that was the entertain the motion. I need a second.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Okay. So this has been approved by the Ordinance Committee here. It'll move to the full City Council next Tuesday night. Can you please submit the amended document here so that we have it registered with the clerk's office, and that both the planning department and the clerk's office have a copy of this most updated version?
We'll do. We'll get it out this week.
Okay, great.
Thanks you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on in the agenda to the public hearing that's slated for item number 3.
I'd like to make a motion and take up item number 3, public hearing.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to take up item number 3 and open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Councilor Sullivan does have his hand up. I don't know if that's continued or not.
Ah, I see. Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, am I unmuted here?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, just before we have another public hearing on a marijuana-related topic, I see that items, I think it's starting at item 6, we have a half a dozen marijuana-related ordinances. And the chair has received thousands of dollars of campaign contributions from California marijuana.
This is inappropriate, I believe. I mean, I'm sorry, this is so inappropriate. I have to disclose my own conflicts. It's not the responsibility of anyone else to expose my conflicts.
I think you should recuse yourself since you're the chair and we have ordinances coming before us that deal strictly with marijuana proposed by the chair, and campaign contributions coming in as far away as Oakland, California. So okay. I think the chair should either step down as chair if we're going to have these on, or we should agree that you're going to take these contributions and donate them to charity.
Who are you to dictate what I'm going to do with my campaign contributions and the thousands of dollars that you're collecting from who knows where? I mean, it's so inappropriate.
Chair Lisi, you signed a document for conflict of interest. There's no place for this here. There's no.
Can we ask the counselor to remove himself from this meeting? Because he's very inappropriate.
I don't think there's anything inappropriate about pointing out that we have ordinances for marijuana, not for other industries, not for other businesses, not for other manufacturers, strictly pertaining to the marijuana industry proposed by the chair. And at the same time,
Councilor Sullivan, I'm going to remind you.
Remind me of what?
You're muted, Councilor Anderson Burgos. And again, I just want to state for the record that it is my job to disclose any potential conflicts or appearance of conflicts. It's my job. It's not your job. It's not anyone else's job. Second of all, if I got a donation from a particular marijuana company, I will recuse myself from those votes in particular. I will not recuse myself from voting on general ordinance changes. This is very straightforward. These items have been in the jacket well before this year look, they go back to 2018. We've been working on these things. We finally had the opportunity to work on them all at the same time to expedite and create a bit of efficiency. So they're all lumped together. There's one ordinance that we're reviewing. And again, it's ordinance language. It's not going to be a special permit for any particular company that may or may not have donated to my campaign. So that's that. You are out of order. I will not recognize you again. And if you're going to be disruptive, we're going to ask you to leave the meeting because it is uncalled for, inappropriate, and against our rules. Thank you.
I second that. Thank you.
Fine, then I'll leave the meeting.
Thank you.
So long.
Everyone.
So this is a public hearing that we've opened for EMB Natural Ventures LLC marijuana facilities cultivation for the establishment of a marijuana facility for cultivation processes at 140 Middle Water Street. For the record, I have not received any donations from this company, nor have I received any donations from the prior company. Thank you. Let's go with somebody who's representing EMB Natural Ventures to explain the proposal. I see Jeffrey Dannenberg here.
Yes, thank you. My name is Jeff Dannenberg. I'm the attorney for EMB Natural Ventures. Also appearing for the company on this Zoom call are Eddie Fernandez and Mark Ellis, who are the company's owners and managers, as well as John Furman, the project engineer and land development specialist. John will be speaking after me, and he'll be sharing the building plan designs. This is actually the second appearance we've made before this committee in which we're requesting a special permit for cannabis cultivation use of the property at 140 Middle Water Street. That property is located in Ward 2, just west of Cabot Street. We were here in 2019 and were granted a special permit. So to explain why we're now asking for the same thing 2 years later, it would help if I could discuss a few things about the history of this property. According to the city assessor's records, a 4-story building was constructed at 140 Middle Water Street to be used as a paper mill in the 1880s, and it continued to be used for that purpose by one company or another until around 1960. From 1964 to 1997, the building was used by a company that performed waste management of paper products on the first floor and was used the basement and upper floors for storage. Apparently, the building wasn't used for any purpose after 1997. EMB first came to the site in the summer of 2018 and entered into a lease in August of that year with the then owner, who had apparently purchased the property from the city a short time before that. EMB's plans were to clean up the brick exterior of the building and to renovate the interior to turn it into an indoor agriculture facility for cannabis cultivation. We got our security plan approved by Chief Febo and our host community agreement signed by Mayor Morris in October 2018. After our meeting with the various department heads, which was chaired by Jeff Burkott, Mr. Furman's firm, VHB, completed a site plan, developmental impact statement, and traffic analysis. And we submitted our special permit application in December 2018. In January 2019, we submitted our provisional license application for cannabis cultivation to the CCC. And in February 2019, we appeared before this committee and explained our plans for the building. And at that hearing in February 2019, the committee unanimously approved moving the application to the full city council, which itself approved the plans unanimously. And a special permit was issued on April 27, 2019. So two things occurred following that during the 12 months or so after April 2019 that led to our coming back to the city council. First, in October 2019, the two owners Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Ellis purchased the property at 140 Middle Water Street. And second, and more importantly, it wasn't until March of 2020 that our license application came up for a hearing at the CCC, which granted the application and gave us the provisional license. Even before then, EMB's architectural and engineering firms had developed plans for the building renovation process, but as a practical matter, those plans couldn't be implemented until the provisional license was granted, because the CCC had to approve the architectural drawings, and it wouldn't do so without the provisional license. Unfortunately, the public health crisis also began in March 2020, which resulted in a delay in our ability to move forward as quickly as we had planned. So it wasn't until about the summer, it was during the summer of 2020 that the architectural and engineering team was able to perform a detailed examination of the building with a view toward finalizing the renovation plans. Due to a number of factors, which John Furman will explain in a little more detail, it was discovered that the existing building was too severely damaged and deteriorated for it to be renovated safely. What I'll say is that from the start, we had anticipated the need for significant work to shore up the existing structure due to the age of the building. What was not initially apparent was that the structural components of the building had been compromised to a degree that introduced significant risks, safety risks, particularly to the individuals who'd be performing the renovation work. This circumstance didn't become known until the specialist performed that analysis of the materials that had been used in the existing structure, as well as of the deterioration of those materials over time, which was apparently contributed to by some poorly executed attempts at remediation during the years when the building was used for other purposes. The bottom line is that the renovation plans were no longer viable at that point, and rather than abandoning the project, Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Ellis made a decision to change the nature of the project from a renovation to a demolition and new construction. So this was last summer. We applied for the demolition permit from the building department, which issued an automatic demolition delay order because the existing structure was over 100 years old. That delay order was subject to a review by the Historical Commission for consideration of whether a waiver of the order should be granted based on the nature of the proposed new construction. So on September 14, 2020, a public hearing was held, and the HHC issued its written determination on September 17 to the effect that the proposed demolition would not be detrimental to the historical, cultural, and architectural heritage of the city. As a result, that delay order was waived and the demolition permit was issued. The building was then taken down over a period of about 2 weeks in November. I should point out that the demolition process included not just tearing down the existing structure, but also setting aside certain fixtures and other items which had been left in the building from the paper mill days for historical preservation in coordination with HHC and the Holyoke Public Library. At that point, Mr. Furman discussed with Jeff Burkott our intention to notify the City Council of the change from a renovation to a rebuild in the nature of updating the information that had been submitted in 2019. And Mr. Burkott, as John can explain in more detail, recommended that procedurally we should treat that submission as an application for a new special permit. So a new meeting was held with the department heads on December 8, 2020, which gave us some guidance for submitting updated materials to the City Council. As a result, we submitted our new special permit application to the City Council on January 5th, 2021, including, among other things, a new site plan, developmental impact statement, and a new traffic analysis. Also included with those materials was a written approval that had been issued by Chief Febo on December 29, 2020, of an updated security plan, and that was prepared in connection with the new building design. I should also point out that while all of this was going on, we needed to apply to the CCC for a renewal of the provisional license, which is only good for a year. So we submitted updated plans to the CCC explaining the change from renovation to a rebuild. But we made clear that the use of the building would continue to be limited to cannabis cultivation, and that the amount of canopy space for growing would remain the same. We're still in what the CCC calls Tier 3, which allows for grow space between 10,000 and 20,000 square feet. I'll leave it to John to explain that will also be before the Stormwater Conservation and Planning Boards with the new building design, which hadn't been necessary under the original renovation concept. But I want to add that based on a commitment we made to HHC, the exterior of the new building will keep the same brick facade appearance of the neighboring properties, specifically 134 and 130 Middle Water Street. It's kind of a row of buildings, and 140 had been the oldest of the three. One last point, I can tell you that Mr. Fernandez, who's the majority owner of EMB, has a real commitment to finding ways to create synergy with the community, and he's got a particular talent for sharing his knowledge of indoor farming techniques. He's operated a non-cannabis indoor agriculture facility growing a variety of vegetables in Waterbury, Connecticut for a number of years, which he ultimately plans to move up to Holyoke, either to the building at 1 Cabot Street, which is basically across the street from 140 Middle Water, or to 130 Middle Water Street, which Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Ellis have also purchased. In addition, we've made a contact going back to 2019 with Jeffrey Hayden, who's the VP of Business and Community Services in the Business Department at Holyoke Community College. He's the school's contact for a statewide program that was started a couple of years ago by the CCC. It's called the Cannabis Community Care and Research Network, and the city of Holyoke and Holyoke Community College were among the early ones selected to participate. The program is designed to develop cannabis workforce training programs, not only for cultivation, but also for retail sales and laboratory production. It's funded, at least in part, by the CCC, and among other things, it creates internship and apprenticeship opportunities for individuals and companies that participate. Mr. Fernandez has established EMB's desire to participate in the cultivation portion of that program, not just because he likes to teach, but also because by participating, we're also making a commitment to hire individuals who successfully complete the program. So it's kind of a win-win for the school, the community, and for local businesses like EMB. Also, it was a condition of the special permit that the City Council granted in 2019 that we hire at least 30% of Holyoke residents to staff the facility. The projected workforce for the facility is between 40 and 50 employees, half of which will be present at any time for different shifts. And I think it's safe to say that EMB expects to hire almost exclusively from the Holyoke area, including drawing security personnel, as the City Council also asked us to do in 2019, from retired Holyoke police personnel. So we're obviously well behind the schedule that we had set for ourselves when we first appeared in front of this committee two years ago. Our hope is to move through the special permit process so that we can complete the remaining permit applications and get the building completed and seeds planted by the end of the year. So with that, I'll turn things over to John Furman. John.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, everybody. I'm John Furman, the Director of Land Development for VHB in Springfield. Jeff provided an excellent summary of the project. Now, what I'll try and do is fill in the blanks as we go along. I think I have screen sharing capabilities, so no, I'm currently disabled.
Jeffrey, can you help Mr. Furman get that screen share capability?
You should have it now.
There we go. All right. All right. So the ruffling through very quickly, we did receive comments from Jeff Burkott, the city planner, and Bob Parent, the city engineer, and we provided responses to both of those comments. But in general, as Jeff had said, we expect to go through the planning board approval because this is a brand new building. We expect to go through the Stormwater Authority because, again, it's new construction, and as well as Conservation Commission. So anything that might be left open on any of those response letters will be addressed as part of those processes as well. What you should be seeing here is basically scrolling through one of the response letters that has some of the documents in it. I'll make this a little bigger. This is basically just a view of the basement area, which is basically going to have some irrigation, mostly mechanicals, and then some trimming. All of the floors are basically either going to be cultivation or some kind of support for the process. This is the first floor elevation. You can see we have some cultivation in here, some mechanical room. One feature about the floor, this is actually at grade, so that we have a loading bay and a refuge bay. In the loading bay, what we plan to do is to create the floor of this as an underwater tank. So the roof water will go into this tank. When it's filled, it will then spill over out into the stormwater management system. But the intent of that is that it will be siphoned off, treated, and used for irrigation. So that will severely reduce the dependency on town water or city water for the process. Again, as we kind of go through the upper floors, you can see they're basically the same. These are all cultivation, various stages of it. And then this is the top floor as well. So the upper floors are basically mirrors. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can get a view of the building. Jeff had commented about our commitment as going through the historic process to create a brick building. The building itself will be a metal insulated panel building with a brick facade. One thing to note is that the original package that we submitted had a different elevation on it, and we submitted this one as an update. And we did that twofold. The first is that one of the other elevations wasn't adequately addressed in the application, so we wanted to make sure the council knew what we were putting in. The second is that the flooring had changed. So over here on the side of the building, you can see this is I believe 134 middle water, and you can see the gray windows. These are actual windows, and we carried that banding through on the new building addition. But on this side, what I'll draw your attention to are these lines, which are the actual floors. So even though we have 4 rows of windows signifying 4 floors, we actually are only going to have 3 in the building. And we're doing that because it is more economical with the increased floor to ceiling height for growing. And I'm just going to zoom out a bit. You can see this is the end of the building facing the canal. So you'll see this as you come across the bridge from Willimantic. We have a bay on the end of the building for CO2. The other view is basically the back of the building. And this we are just proposing to leave as metal panel. The building itself, if you were to recall what the old exterior looked like, this was extremely dilapidated. The bricks weren't even held together anymore. They were just sitting there. You could go up to the wall and just pull them out. So this has really no view other than from the abutter. So we're proposing this side of the building as metal panel. And that is a section through the building itself. One thing to note is basically the area here, which is a window. And the planner had asked how the window was to be constructed. So basically, masons will lay in all these bricks. They will install a sill, then install 2 side jambs and a header, and then infill the window frame with actual brick. So it will be a full brick facade. One of the other comments was a lighting plan. What's unique about this site is that we really don't have any land associated with it. The building is bigger than the original one that was there. The original building, we were proposing to have about 25,688 square feet between all floors. And for this building, we were proposing 34,400. So you can see the footprint of the old building, basically inside. And then this red line is the footprint of the new building. We have additional land over here, but this land is occupied with utilities. It's about 25 foot wide, and as well as it's an easement committed to the owner of, I think this is 120 Middlewater. We have reciprocal easements between the two properties. So, we're maintaining that easement as being open. This is the Illuminaire plan. Basically, because we have no land, we're using wall-mounted lighting fixtures, and we basically have no spillover. Except for this wall back here, which we're certainly a couple feet off of the property line. Behind us here is a Pioneer Valley Railroad property. So there will be light spillage over to there, but the highest level is about 3.4 foot candles. And if you've been in this area here, this could actually do for a little bit more light, given the amount of dumping and rubbish that we found in the back over here. So that hopefully that won't be a problem. We will need easements, and we're in the process of getting and working through them with the abutters, temporary easements for construction along the backside, as well as a permanent easement for a new sewer main. During the demolition of the building, we saw a sewer line in front of the building. We saw that it worked. When we got to the demolition, we couldn't find where it went, where it connected to. So they located where the last stub was, and we have to explore that more during construction. But for the new building, we're planning to construct a new sewer line out the back, and we've left a stub so that if the adjacent building behind us actually needs to connect, they can do that as well. So that's a quick look at the building, a couple plans to look at for the site. This is the survey that BHB has prepared. Again, this is the existing building. This is the proposed building. It identifies 4 or 5 different easements that are already in existence on the front and the back of the building. Those are not proposed to be changed. Again, the shading represents temporary utilities that temporary easements that we're going to need for construction. The last piece that I will share is on parking. So I'm flipping over. You should see a Google Earth image right now. This gray roof, this is an older aerial, but this gray roof here is actually 140 Middlewater, which has been removed. In the packet that we responded to with the planner, we included a copy of a lease that Alaska Assets has executed with the owner of 160 Middlewater, which is right here. And that agreement basically allows exclusive use of this for parking. So with the shifting that is proposed, we have a maximum shift of 20 to 25 people. So under the current ordinance, we would need a maximum of 5 to 6 parking spaces. We plan to construct 25 to 30 spaces in this area. So we'll have more than ample for users of the building, for any visitors, and for any shift changes. There was concern about access to the site. So anybody parking here would actually just walk down Middlewater to the other side of the building through the easement and then enter the front door on that side. And I think the last thing to really kind of comment out was Jeff had talked about the condition of the existing building and why it had to come down. He's covered the dates and the logistics things of it very well. As far as the structure goes, when we got to be able to do the structural analysis of it, the brick walls were actually 3 layers of bricks. The outside mortar was loose, but when we tried to get in and fix it, the mortar on the inside walls was also decayed to the fact that you could not take down any part of the wall without the rest of it collapsing. Jeff had mentioned that the upper floors were used for storage. The upper floor in particular was overloaded beyond its capacity. And that floor got its support by hanging off the roof trusses, which were long, large timber posts. Those timber beams were actually sheared and cracked. So in order to replace that, the roof would have had to come off, and we'd have had to replace all those posts. They were beyond repair. And in addition, throughout the building on all levels, the previous owners had cut holes in the floor for various things, to pass things from one floor to the other. No thought was given to where the holes were cut. So if they were cutting it with a chainsaw and they cut right through a support beam, so be it. And then they never bothered to fix it. So the building was really, through its previous use, was destroyed beyond repair. And when we actually got in there to be able to do the structural assessment, it was readily apparent that this building was going to come down on its own. There was nothing we could do. So, and I believe that covers all of the items that I had.
John, can I just supplement something you said? You mentioned, John mentioned the company Alaska Assets, and I don't want there to be any confusion about who that is. Cannabis companies generally don't own real estate. The reason for that is that in title insurance companies won't write for a cannabis company because of the federal law issues. So what Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Ellis did is that they got a separate LLC named Alaska Assets. And it was Alaska Assets that purchased 140 Middle Water Street, 130 Middle Water Street, and then more recently entered into the lease with a company named Western Mass Demolition Corp for 160 Middle Water Street, where the parking is. So technically, Alaska Assets is the owner and will be leasing 140 Middle Water Street for the use as a cannabis facility for 140, and will be leasing to EMB for the parking rights at 160 Middle Water Street.
Thank you. So is there any other presenter in your group this evening?
No.
Okay. The one other thing that I remember about EMB when they came forward was that they were our first person of color owned, I believe, cannabis permit that we issued in the city. And I thought that was a special moment for us. So I'm glad to see that you're still here, despite the fact that you run into some obstacles along the way. I'm very saddened to hear that the building was in such a state where it was going to be coming down on its own, and that you weren't able to do any of the renovations and the beautiful windows. I remember the presentation really well. Yeah, and that there wasn't even an opportunity to do facade, to save the facades and build behind it. So nice to see that you're here with a new plan and that you are working to create something that is in harmony with the other brick buildings in the downtown and location on Water Street. So thank you for that. I know that I have a letter from the engineer here that raises a number of issues. I believe that you're in possession of the same letter from our city engineer, Bob Parent. It's dated April 12th, and it's addressed to me. And there are a number of partially addressed issues, and I'll just note them for the committee because I'm not sure if the committee has all these documents in front of them. But first, related to traffic impacts, they've only partially been addressed at this point in time. Though the project is not expected to significantly impact traffic in the project area, some localized delays are anticipated at the end of the afternoon shift at Middle Water Street and Cabot Street intersection. And the DPW recommends that the applicant be required to coordinate the timing of its afternoon shift with other businesses on this section of Middle Water Street to minimize local delays. Two, that in terms of property access, this is also partially addressed. And the applicant's engineer acknowledges that temporary easements are needed to construct the new building, and a permanent easement is needed to construct the new sewer connection. And the city solicitor should be consulted about the potential to issue a special permit for a project that does not have all the easements and property rights necessary to construct the project. Options may include a conditioned approval or deferral of action until such time as the necessary rights have been obtained. I'll ask for the solicitor to chime in on that once I go through the rest of the points. Off-site parking. This is addressed in the previous comment regarding the property access and easements that are necessary to obtain. Utility abandonment, also partially addressed. The applicant has not been able to confirm if the sewer service for the former building was properly abandoned, and this will need to be done before the DPW issues a sewer connection permit for the new building. And then finally, stormwater improvements, also only partially addressed. As previously noted, additional stormwater improvements may be necessary to comply with the city's stormwater regulations, and this will require a permit from the Stormwater Authority. So I just want to put that out there for discussion. I think the first item of business to sort of address is from our city solicitor related to the property access. So if we could suspend the necessary rules and allow Crystal Barnes, our city solicitor, to address us, I think that would be in order here.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Go ahead, Crystal.
So I think the proponent can speak to this as well. We received communication that sort of is in response to our concerns. So at this point, it's going to be a sewer easement, which isn't unheard of. And honestly, you know, you're going to need sewer just as a habitable condition. So that's not something that we're totally concerned about as far as the special permit goes. And those easements are in the works. As to property access, there is, I believe, I know I have newer communication, I thought, where they had received the easement or rights that they needed, but I do see that they have negotiations with the owners to secure those easement rights for property access. And if they can just correct me whether or not they have something newer. This is from April 8th. But as far as I'm concerned, we can condition it just like we did the other one, that they need to have site control of what they need to be able to operate. So whether it's sewer rights or parking rights, et cetera, property access, things of that nature, we can make those conditions. But I'll let the proponent correct me if they have newer information from April 8th, but that's what I have. We're happy with it as long as they have things in place.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Furman.
Thank you, Councilor. So as far as the property access goes, there is an existing reciprocal easement with 120 Middle Water. We have a 25-foot easement favoring them, and we have a 25-foot wide easement on their property favoring us for access. So access to the building for trucks, vehicles is not an issue. That's in place. It's always been there. The temporary construction easement around the back of the building and the permanent easement for sewer are two items that we need, which are basically underway right now. And as far as the parking goes on 160, we have an executed lease, and there's no easement that's required with that. People will park by right, by the easement. They'll walk down Middle Water, which is a public street, and then enter the access easement to get to the front door. So we're really talking about only two easements.
There's only two easements that are required, and you have the rights to access the property in all other cases?
We do.
Mm-hmm. And can you just list them out for me, which ones are pending?
The two pending ones are a temporary construction easement. We are on our property, but we're set, there's no setback requirement in the zone. So we're going to be on someone else's property just by walking in with equipment. So we need a temporary easement to be able to do that. And then a sewer easement on the back of the building for installation of a permanent sewer line, which we are willing to share with that abutter as well.
And the temporary construction easement is from one property owner abutter, or is it from multiple?
It is from two. It is from the owner to the back of us. I'm not sure of the address, and then Pioneer Valley Railroad.
Yeah, Pioneer Valley Railroad, and then the rear abutter.
Yes.
The sewer easement is from whom?
The rear abutter.
The rear abutter. Okay. Okay, and then related to any of the other issues that I raised in this letter from the engineer, do other counselors have questions about some of the issues here? And do the applicants have questions about any of the issues here? I think we're going to wind up conditioning the permit on not only the easements, but the satisfaction of any of these outstanding issues. Okay, so then I can move on to the planning department's letters. So let's see here. Nope, this is coming from Bob Parent again. That's not the document that I was looking for. Sorry about that. EMB. Oh, here it is, Mass Biotechnology. Okay, so looks like you got the security plan taken care of. And the survey plan was received. Here we go. So what's the other piece of, so it says here, the applicant has been in contact, has the applicant been in contact with the gas and electric as the improvements proposed within the right of way? Is that the rear abutter, or is that another? Do
you know what comment that is?
Sure, so it's under 5 in the operations plan. So it says, has the applicant been in contact with the gas and electric owner of parcel 04901-007 as the improvements proposed within the private right of way? It says that.
Yeah, I don't know that I have that comment.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. This is a letter to Rebecca Lisi as the chairperson, dated March 9th, 2021. I believe that this is from.
That might be a different one, Councilman. Ours was dated 3/17.
I don't believe I have that one. And so you're feeling that that was satisfied?
I don't know that we received a letter dated 3/9. The letter that we received from planning was dated 3/17. And I definitely don't remember, because we're not really proposing any improvements in any right of way. So I'm wondering if that is a different letter or a different project.
John, if I could just supplement, we did contact Keith, contacted the ITS company, contacted the company. So I think we're good on that.
Okay. So let's see if we could pull this up again. Oh, I lost my way. No, that's 6 Appleton. I keep on grabbing the same one. It's not coming up easily for me. Ordinance Zoom agenda. And no, it's still, no, I'm not getting it. Jeffrey, do you mind sending it to the top of my inbox?
Working on it right now.
Yeah.
Councilwoman, I'm able to share my screen and I have that letter up that we received, if that would help.
Yeah, I think it might. Yeah, I just keep on pulling up the agenda, and then the other has all the recommendations on public hearings that we've already worked through. And then it's just the engineer's letter that I keep on coming to.
All right, this is the letter that we received, March 17th.
All right. The only thing is I'm not going to be able to move through it. So you'll have to just scroll down for us.
Sure. No,
we don't have to
fine.
go through it line by line either.
Okay, that's great. The first line items here, what we've done is we've just gone through it and highlighted a few things. So the first section here, per the zoning ordinance, what Jeff Burkott is basically saying, there were 2 items that we didn't submit. One of them was a description of the activities on what we were doing on site, and the other one was they did not provide a general overview of security measures. So in our response to comments dated April 8th, I'm not sure if you have those or not, but we basically confirmed that we would only be doing cultivation on the property. And we provided a general overview of security measures, but we noted that we had submitted the full security plan to the police chief, and we included the letter of his approval from there. So, and then everything else was just a confirmation of that we met the requirements. So the colored coding here, just don't pay attention to it. It just was, we were assigning different things on some items that were required. This comment here, which we'll talk about again, basically said it appears that some of the floor plans were missing. We had only provided the first floor plan because that is all we had developed at the time. But since then, the response includes all the floor plans, which I had shown you at the beginning of the presentation. Again, the comments 1 and 2 here. Comments 1, the plans are considered final other than any revisions that we need to do as a result of meetings. And this comment again goes through the basement and the floor plans, which were.
And let's just pause there because I heard you also talk about the April 8th communication. So we're still talking about the plans that were submitted to January 6th, and then the comments and responses that were submitted do not actually change the plans. They just clarify questions about the plans.
That is correct. There are no changes to the plans. The only thing that has changed was the exterior elevation that was emailed mid-review after the original submittal. And then the other plans that were submitted were just never included because they hadn't been developed yet. So they all are current.
Okay, great.
All right.
So let's keep going from there. The elevations do not require, or do they require a special permit for the height that you're proposing?
They do not. No, we are within what's allowed by zone.
Okay, great.
All right, and then we get down to application and procedures, basically, again, describing what kind of activities will take place on the premises, and we're only doing cultivation. There will be trimming and then packaging and shipping. So, but there'll be no processing, creating of any other products, marijuana based. It's just cultivation and then deliveries. On the this item 5 here, which was basically responding or questioning about the trash receptacles, I pointed those out on the plan. So we have a 30-yard dumpster, and then we have 2 roll-off dumpsters in the refuse bays. And basically, our response was that any that'll be a secured bay, so that will not be able to be accessed from the outside. Deliveries will be scheduled, and they'll be supervised. So we do have non-cannabis trash that we will be having dispose of, and so those were the 2 roll-off dumpsters. Any cannabis-related trash will be mixed with a soil material to make it really inert and unusable, and then that will be taken off and recycled.
Okay.
The next red one was basically about the building elevations not being signed and sealed by a registered architect, which they now are.
They now are.
Yes. We get into details on the site planning. And basically he's asking for striping and symbology for the ADA spaces. And our response to that was, when we have to do a parking plan for 160 Middle Water, we will include those at that time.
Okay.
Window treatments, we'd already talked about those. We hadn't provided any details other than that they would be, no windows, they'd be fake windows. So the details are now submitted as part of this response.
And that's what you were showing with the brick cutouts?
That's correct. That's
the
correct.
metal cutouts with the brick infill.
That's right. Yeah, and it's the same thing with under this executive summary. We tried to put that in words, but didn't do a really great job at it. So, so the details actually show exactly how it's going to be worked. The development impact statement, and this has been a change. When we originally submitted, we had an agreement to park at 1 Cabot Street, and the concern was how will our employees basically cross Cabot Street and then get to the building. Since then, we have provided a copy of the lease with 160 Middle Water, so there will be no crossing of Cabot Street, which is basically removing that situation altogether.
Okay.
All right, on this next word here, number 10, basically looking at the light fixtures. The architect had not provided an luminaire plan at that time, which we walked through as part of the presentation. Really the only, we would definitely not have any shining on the public right away because we're the furthest away from it. The only neighbor that might have some concern is the 3-foot candles to the end of the property by the Pioneer Valley Railroad. But honestly, if you had seen the condition of that, could you actually use the extra lighting out there to prevent any dumping that's been going on. So hopefully that won't be an issue. Again, the traffic flow patterns. This was basically another comment regarding the 1 Cabot Street parking. We have since changed that, and anybody parking in 160 will walk down Middle Water Street to the easement in the front access. We've already talked about the proposed easements that we require, so I think we're good with that. There's only 19 comments if anyone's commenting, so we're almost done. The traffic impact, how employees will safely walk to the proposed building. So I think we've covered that already. Can the applicant explain how pedestrian cyclists will leave the right of way? So if we have anyone who is going to bicycle to work, they would basically come off Cabot Street, go down Middle Water into the easement, and then enter the front door. And we can certainly add a bike rack to the building. That won't be any issue at all. On the exterior elevations, I showed you where that CO2 tank is. It's actually inset into the corner of the building as a little alcove that they're building into it. So there is a space where, and that's filled with a hose, like an oil fuel tank, if you would. So they would just access that building, the tank with the hose, go down that area, fill it, and then drag it back in. So that did not look to be any issue. These two comments basically temporary and permanent signage. As far as the temporary signage goes, we're not planning any. As far as the permanent signage goes on the exterior elevations, which I can very easily, all they're looking at is just really just above the canopy. There's a big 140, which is the address of the building. Kind of a modern look, but those would be the only two things. We're not planning any signage to advertise the business.
Okay.
And the last one really is, any sidewalks and ramps have to comply with the accessibility code, which we noted, and then any changes, require going back to the planning board, which we also.
Great, and thank you for that. So given the comprehensive review that we've been able to do here, do any of the committee members have questions? No. Okay, so then I believe we should open the public hearing to any members of the public who want to comment either in favor or against this proposal. I'm scrolling through and I am not seeing anyone at this moment. Okay, so let's entertain a motion. Council Murphy.
Yeah, if I can, Madam Chair, thank you. So, I mean, I was supporting this when they first came. It was one of the first things I got involved with. And I met with most of these gentlemen, I think back in March of 2019 or something along that lines. They all look a little older right now, but they're still hanging in there. I look much older. So I want to just say a few things. Number one, I appreciate you coming back. Appreciate you having a setback and then figuring out a way to overcome it. That's number one. And I want to encourage Mr. Fernandez, I'm talking now, I'm directing this to you because you indicated one thing that I really would love to see happen. And I know you talked about potentially growing food in an indoor facility. And I would extremely encourage you to do that for several reasons. Number one, obviously having fresh fruit and vegetables is something that would be very good for the community. I think there's a lot of potential laborers that could work for you to do this. And while I'm not against this plant doing the cultivation of marijuana, I really want, once you get this going, I want to see you come back and say, let's get a fruit and vegetable garden in some of the buildings that we have and provide that both an employment opportunity and also a nutritional food opportunity for our residents. So I do, and I know you were very enthusiastic about that. I know you do that in Connecticut, and I would love to have you do that here in Hoyle. So that's my words of encouragement.
Any other counselors want to comment here, ask questions? Okay.
Mr. Fernandez want to answer my comment? I think he took himself off mute there.
Yeah, how you guys doing? Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm actually super excited to do the fruits and vegetables as well. It's something that we do in the Waterbury now, and I'm very proud of it. That's kind of how I started even getting into cultivating. So I'm super excited about it. And as soon as 140 is up and operational, that's our second big project that we're going to be doing up in Holyoke. So yes, that's also my word as well. I can't wait for that.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
No, thank you.
Okay, any other comments then? Let's entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. And then I'll entertain a motion from the committee. I think a motion to approve the special permit is in order. Condition that the property owner gain site control for all of the easements and property rights needed to construct the project. We'll just leave it at that. That all of the outstanding issues in the letter from the engineer dated April 12th be complied with. And it looks to me that you did comply with all of the issues that were raised from the planning department when we went through that review with the color-coded items. So it's just those two conditions. Is there any other condition that a counselor would like to add there? Hearing none. I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve the special permit with the two amendments that were just proposed.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So this is approved by the Ordinance Committee and will go before the City Council next Tuesday for final approval. Thanks all for your participation this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
The next item on the agenda is items 4A and B that should be taken up as a package. So I'll entertain a motion to suspend the necessary rules and take up items number 4A and B as a package.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to take up 4A and B as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, so this is filed by Councilor Murphy. Ordered that the zoning on the west side of Main Street from the northerly side of Sargent Street to the southerly side of Hamilton Street be changed from BH Business Highway to BC Central Business. And then it talks about the individual parcels that would require the zone change from BH to BC. And at the, excuse me, we should open, this public hearing was continued, so we should open up the public hearing formally because it was continued. So I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing here.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, so I think here we just wanted to get confirmation from our administrative assistant to the City Council, Jeffrey Anderson Burgos, that the applicants at each of the different properties and all of the abutters within 300 feet of each of these properties were properly noticed about the potential zone change here. Jeffrey, I know you've confirmed that with me, but for the record, will you also just note it?
Yes, so I did get that list from the assessor. I was told that the owners should receive notice. I looked at the abutters list, and even absent that, the parcels in question also appear as abutters to the other addresses as well. So they are listed as recipients.
Right, and I do believe that a couple of them noted that they were receiving multiple notifications because they got one for themselves and then also for each of the abutters.
Yeah, Paulo in the clerk's office tried to weed out the duplicates, but there were just too many.
Mm-hmm. We appreciate that. Okay, so because I'm doing split screen and everything's shortened, I'm just not having an easy time finding these documents. So let's go back. 413, here we go. This is the Zoom info. I'm looking for the document. Zoom info. No, I feel like something happened to my inbox when I was in the split screen there, and I'm just having a hard time finding things tonight. So this is the planning letter. Nope, that's not going to be it. I'm going to need you to send me this document again. Can you resend that full email that had the 3 documents in it?
Do you just want me to share it?
Sure, we could do it that way.
So is it the abutter list specifically you want shared?
No, it's the recommendation from the planning board.
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. So we can work on, yes.
Councilor Bacon and Councilor McGivern's hands are up.
Thank you. So we should first, before, well, while the public hearing is open, we'll allow Councilor Bacon and Councilor McGivern to speak. Councilor Bacon, as a committee member, I give deference to you.
Thank you. Through the chair to the maker of the order, my question is if all of the listed and noticed property owners are in favor of the zone change to their property.
The only, make sure I don't think I'm muted. So I can tell you that nobody has expressed any opposition to people I'm talking to, but the most important thing, and the only reason I filed this, is that everything that someone is doing there now is not impacted, and they're not going to become in non-compliance. They're not going to be able to continue to do what they've been doing. But what it will do is on the areas that we are demolishing things, and there's 2 areas right now demolished, and there potentially could be 2 more lots. Without the zone change, there's going to be no development on those lots. That there's just, with all the restrictions in terms of frontage and rear and then side, the lots that used to have buildings would now be able to have maybe a small garage. So, I mean, that's, I have not heard any opposition to it. I know they've been notified. I've talked to a few. Obviously some businesses are not open because of the virus, because of the COVID, But I have heard no one saying they were against it. And again, I tried to make sure that nobody would be having any issue in terms of compliance if I made this change, or in terms of what they currently are doing, being able to continue that.
Just as a follow-up, continuing through the chair, and I totally take you at your word. However, I want to be sure that we are not establishing a precedent here that silence by a property owner means that they agree with the zone change going forward. I think this could be a slippery slope. I have no concern about the intentions or the outcomes, and certainly if it's a city-owned property, it's not a concern. But where it's a private property ownership, I would be much more comfortable if we had documentation from the owners in support of the zone change. I totally take you at your word. I would just be much more comfortable from a, I don't know, dotting the I's and crossing the T's perspective when it comes to private property owners. Thank you.
Okay, if I could, Jeffrey, and I would certainly be more than willing, and Jeffrey, if you'd be willing to give me assistance, I would definitely, you know, if I can't get in touch with the people personally, send them a communication and ask them to give me a verbal communication that they understand what's going on and that they're not opposed to it. I mean, this has been going vacant lot, and obviously they've been there a long time. I'm just trying to get it where I can get some development in there. So I would, you know, if that is the request, so that we don't end up trying to make sure we offend somebody, I'm fine with trying to do that. And Jeffrey, if you're willing to give me a hand, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I just don't want anything to come back later.
No, I understand, and that's why I try to make sure that they all got notified, and I tried to make, and I had people suggesting other things a long time ago, and I rejected those on the basis that there were going to be people that would become non-compliant, that there were businesses that were going to, if something happened, they would not be in a position to continue. I tried to make sure that this would allow them all to continue as they are, but with the concept of getting better investment and better development on the same street that they're on, which then would help their business.
Yes, and which I think is highly commendable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you. First, along the thoughts of Councilor Bacon, I share the same concern. Not the intent of the order in the which makes the city council, the applicant here. I believe that the intentions are good and certainly correct, but I have a lot of concerns when we do this and private property owners are not present in public hearings. I hope when we open it up that there are some owners of these properties are being changed present with us here tonight, and then we can hear their views and hear if they do have concerns. I'm going to be a little bit more specific though, because the red flag when this came before the Ordinance Committee at the first night of the public hearing was 84 Sargent Street. 84 Sargent Street right now is owned by the Aegis, if I'm saying it correctly, Aegis Company, which is on Jackson Street, which bought and made a deal with the city for part of the old Parson paper mill land itself. The part of the deal is that there's a piece of property in between their property where they operate and manage a company, and a building that was one of the few buildings that was not torn down, was not completely damaged by the fire at the Parsons paper. That is 84 Sargent Street. If you looked on Google Map, you would see that building in between what is now owned by Aegis, but is a solar field itself. Now, Aegis put the solar field up knowing that they would have that probably in operation for 10 years, but to keep their option to expand in the future. And that would be not only beneficial to the city, but beneficial to the property owner themselves. So in the middle of this, HEDIC made a loan to the redevelopment authority. And in doing so, HEDIC has got 84 Sargent Street because the redevelopment authority made a deal with the Aegis company for the Parson paper, property itself. HEDIC has got 84 Sargent Street as collateral for the loan itself. It's a $400,000 loan. So there's a lot going on here, and I'm not hearing from the property owner. I'm not hearing from the redevelopment authority. I don't think HEDIC's been notified, and I don't know if our planning economic development director is with us or anybody representing them. And then these are the concerns, a little bit more specific, but similar concerns to what Councilor Bacon is raising, that maybe the intent is good, but when you invest in property, when you own property, it's an investment. Right. And just because the intent is for the better good of the city, doesn't mean it's for the better good of the property owner. So out of at least a courtesy, we should be having each of those property owners signing off on these proposed changes.
Councilor Murphy, do you want to respond in any way, or?
Again, I'll go to same thing I said to Councilor Bacon. I certainly have no problem if I can reach out and I can get the planning board to help me reach out, and Jeffrey, and we can do that. And I just in terms of what we're doing or what I'm proposing, I mean, if we're I'm not exactly sure. I think Councilor McGivern is saying that it's a solar panel that they're doing a little higher up on the left side of Sargent Street, right, Councilor McGivern?
Well, it's listed as 78 Sargent Street in your order.
Yeah.
That would be the former Parson Paper Mill property, which is a, in the process of a redevelopment project through the redevelopment authority and the Aegis company, which is over on Jackson Street, which includes an in-between property, which I believe is 84 Sargent Street.
Okay, because and maybe I should have caught this earlier, because in reality, the only potential address on Sargent Street, I believe, because I'm looking at Sargent Street, Sargent to Hamilton, but all the addresses that I saw were on Main Street. And now I am noticing that 78 Sargent is there. So I will definitely check that. If you want to table this, I'd be fine, and I'll try to check that out. But all of the properties that I had in my original order were from Sargent to Hamilton, but all on Main Street. Every doorway.
The agenda item, if it helps, in the agenda list, it's at 78 Sargent.
Right. It's the last one.
Yep. No, I'm seeing it. And again, I'm willing to try to get statements if I can, saying that they're okay with this. And again, right now, the Sargent Street property that's connected to this Main Street is a pretty good building. It used to be Weinstein Furniture, and it's a pretty good building. So and there are people living there, so it's in pretty good shape. So hopefully they're not planning on doing anything with that. But I will gladly try to check it. And if you want to table it, I'll try to take it up and get it for the next time.
That's fine. I'm willing to table it once more, but I do think if we're sending out the notice, like we're doing our due diligence, and then it does become incumbent upon the property owner to respond to the notifications that we're sending out. Additionally, I feel that this is an enhancement to their property, given the setback requirements that are required to move forward on businesses in the business highway, because we're expecting to have larger parcels of land for like strip or box development. The setback requirements are much greater. In a central business district, they would be smaller. So you could actually do more with the small piece of property that you have. So I think that this is an enhancement to the property. I do understand that, perception is everything. And so what I believe to be a enhancement may not be perceived the same way as an individual property owner, but if we're doing our due diligence, then I do think that we create the opportunity for people to speak up, and they need to take advantage of those opportunities if they do want to weigh in. Councilor Bacon, I see your hand, and then I think we can move on the motion that was made to table.
Thank you. I have very strong opinions on this. We can each as individuals hold any opinion we want as to what might be better or worse for a property owner. But at the end of the day, this is highly unusual that we would be coming forth with a broad zone change in an area that is not initiated by the property owners. In most cases, as a property owner, I wouldn't be looking for notices of somebody to be changing a zone on my property, which is why I think we need to err on the side of extra communication and extra documentation in this regard, because this is the exception, which deviates significantly from what people are accustomed to. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern for a second time.
I don't want to keep echoing Councilor Bacon. She's going to think that we're always in agreement, right?
Oh, no worries.
Our opinion is important, but our opinion is not as important as the owner of the property. And 78 Sargent Street, if it's what it looks like it is not a small piece of property. It's the former Parsons paper mill itself. And this is where, you know, if it's just a wrong address or wrong parcel number, it needs to be corrected. But the owners of the property were not sent letters. The abutters of the property and the recipients many of the abutters were recipients because they were abutters, not because they were owners of the property. And Aegis is over on Jackson Street. I just want to know, you know, why they would not be contacted. Why? Because I said 84 Sargent is collateral for Edict's loan to the redevelopment authority. Why they would not be contacted. And in this case, I think the setbacks in terms of business highway versus business central don't make a difference if they're looking to do some type of development on that property that would be commercial and that would fit into the neighborhood itself. And this is where I share and have concerns that when we become the applicant for a zone change for private property, we should go way out of our way to make sure the private property owners are on board with this.
Thank you. Jeffrey, can you confirm that the parcel number for 78 Sargent Street and the parcel number itself are the same?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So when I was given the parcel numbers to be changed, the address list is what I got from planning. When I gave the notice to the assessor, he actually put a notation on the notice that went out to the abutters that the last one that ends in 012 is actually 71 Sargent Street.
So it's a typo that we're talking about here?
Well, it was based on the addresses that I got, and then he corrected it when he saw the parcel number.
Okay.
We're going to have to either re-advertise or remove that from this list.
Right, because we don't have a 71 in front of us.
But you do have the parcel number.
I know, but
that's fine. Let's so Crystal, let's entertain the let's suspend the necessary rules and allow our legal counsel to speak. And Crystal, if you mind letting us know whether or not we should close this public hearing and start anew with a re-advertisement, or if there's a way to advertise in the middle of this public hearing, given that it's still open. Can you tell us what some of our options would be here? So on the motion to suspend the necessary rules and allow legal to speak. Motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Crystal, are you there with us? Jenna, I see that you're unmuted at the moment. Are you chiming in nope, you're not unmuted. No. So we don't have legal counsel. I would say, let's lay it on the table and we'll figure out what to do with it next time. There's no sense in.
We're still in the public hearing, right? So if there are any property owners on the Zoom,
Yes.
maybe they would like to speak if there are any.
So are there any property owners? I'm skimming through and I'm not seeing any property owners. So I'm going to say that we'll leave the hearing open and we'll continue for
You can give, let's go 2 weeks and I'll try to get you an answer in 2 weeks.
Councilor
If
Lacey?
we don't have to advertise.
Councilor Bacon.
At this point, I find it amazing that not one property owner has had anything to say throughout this entire process. That is totally unusual. And at this point, I'm at the point that the only zone changes that I will vote for relative to this order are those where we have a written, signed agreement and request for the zone change from the property owner. This is just too unusual that no one, not one owner out of all these properties, it has either written, emailed, or come on a Zoom. It's just highly irregular at this point. Thank you.
I think we did have a couple of folks at the first one, didn't we?
We only had 1 or 2.
Still, and they did speak to the multiple notices that they got.
Those are butters. The butters are different from the owners of the property.
Yes, thanks, Crystal. We did suspend the rules and ask that legal counsel approach us to clarify. So there's a typo, it seems, in the list of properties that were advertised. Despite the fact that the parcel number is correct for what we have on as 78 Sargent Street, it's 71 Sargent Street for that parcel number. So we're about to take action here, and we're trying to figure out if we need to close this and start anew, or if there's a way to re-advertise, if there's a requirement to re-advertise in the middle of the hearing now.
I think you could approve. So the parcel ID is correct, but the address is wrong?
Yes.
Were the letters sent to the correct people?
Jeffrey, can you let us know if the letter was sent to 71 or 78 Sargent Street?
So Tony wrote on each of the notices that went out that 78 is actually 71.
So the notices all went to 71, but
the notices all state that the parcel is actually for 71, not 78.
And so I guess we're trying to figure out if that happened in advance of the letters going out, or if it happened as a revision after the letters went out.
That was written on all of the notices that went out.
To abutters.
To abutters, yes.
We need to know the notices that went to the property owners.
Yeah, if it went to 71 or 78, I mean.
That parcel number is on the list of recipients for the abutters. I will mention.
As an abutter to another parcel, though, I'll bet.
That's correct.
Not as a notification. We're trying to change your property.
Right.
Okay, so what we understand now is that 71 Sargent Street was noticed as an abutter. The parcel number for 71 Sargent Street was advertised, but 71 Sargent Street has a typo in it that listed it as 78 Sargent Street on this agenda and in the advertisement that went in the newspaper. So
Right.
how do we reconcile those pieces of information, Crystal?
I mean, we would have to redo notification because we can't have, if people need to be on notice, and if they're on notice of the wrong location, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. So is there a way to carve out 71 Sargent Street from this order as an amendment and move forward on the remaining?
Yeah, you could amend, so that way it's not affecting that property.
Okay.
Council Lisi?
Yes?
I have a question for legal.
Yep, under the suspension of the rules, Councilor Bacon to legal.
Thank you. Attorney Barnes, I don't see in our records anywhere here where the property owners have been noticed.
That's a problem too, but not something I would have information about.
I'm sorry?
That would be a problem as well. We need to notify the actual owners.
So I would like to have documentation provided to the committee that the owners received notice.
Okay, so we're going to keep the public hearing open. If we want to, can amend the order to exclude the one property that may not have been noticed directly or advertised properly. And we can get confirmation for the remaining properties as to whether or not the property owners were notified properly. In either case, we're continuing the public hearing. We can, I think, it's a simple enough order, so I think we can continue it for 2 weeks. And I hope that we can circulate the written documentation of everyone who was noticed in this process. And I heard a commitment from Councilor Murphy to reach out to the property owners individually. Any other comments here?
Just one thing, I mean, and I'm not the one that sent out, but I'm of a strong opinion that owners are the ones that are getting notified on any zone change.
Of course.
And it may include abutters outside of that, but the owners are the ones that get the notice of their property potentially getting changed. At least that's the way I always understood it. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but that's what I thought was happening. And
I think it's just a matter of getting the written documentation, and we should have it. And I think that's fine. I'm hoping that within 2 weeks we can move on this item one way or another.
Yep.
And Councilor Murphy, we may have to re-advertise and renotice for 71 if we need to. Okay, so then on the motion that we continue this public hearing 2 weeks to the 27th of April at 6:30 p.m.
Yep.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Continued. Okay, the next item is number 5, a zone change application from R1A to BL for Dennis Croto at 83 Lower Westfield Road. There is not enough parking for commercial property at 79 Lower Westfield Road, and the applicant is interested in opening courses for floral design and gardening, which would entail needing more parking. We closed this public hearing on 3/9/21, and we have a letter from the planning department. This reads, so it's dated March 15th. Dear Councilor Lisi, please be advised that the Holyoke Planning Board at their March 9th, 2021 meeting discussed the above referenced zoning map change request to the zoning ordinance. After considering testimony received at the public hearings and discussions, the board voted unanimously to recommend to the Ordinance Committee of the City Council that the zone change be denied. The zone change request would further expand a spot zone for the economic advancement of a single resident, and there was residential opposition. So that letter is a part of our records now. Under discussion, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Councilor Lisi. I support the recommendation of the planning board, and I urge the committee to also vote to deny this zone change for the reasons stated. Thank you.
Yep. Is there any other comment? Is there a second to Councilor Bacon's motion then?
Second.
Motion has been made and second that the zone change be denied. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. By a 5-1 vote, this zone change was denied.
Who voted for?
5-0.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
My math skills getting challenged.
No, 5-0. Sorry.
Okay. I thought I heard 5-1.
I did too.
Okay, so let's see. Next on the agenda is item number 6, which kicks off 6 through, I believe it's 17, nope, 6 through 14. So item number 6 through 14, I'll entertain a motion to take these up as a package.
So on the motion, before we vote on it, if we take these up as a package, I would like each of them to be voted on separately, please.
I would as well.
Sure. I think that we can, I'm just wondering if it's going to be redundant if we are passing one ordinance in item number 6, and then the rest become, I think it's easy to deny things, but to vote a second time on the other pieces, I wonder if that becomes redundant and if there's any conflicts there. Crystal, can you weigh in here? I'll entertain a motion to suspend the necessary rules and ask Crystal to just weigh in.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Crystal, thanks for being available here. We are looking at the package of marijuana orders 6 through 14. Because we're considering one ordinance, would it be, we understand that it's easy to deny or withdraw items that we are not going to move forward on, but for those that we would be moving forward on, are they, is it redundant or does it create a problem if they're done in duplicate?
I don't think there's any problem because the legal form is going to come out the same. Like, I'm not going to draft legal form for each one of those. I would draft it as one large ordinance change.
Okay.
I know normally that's not how this would work, but I mean, for the ease of use, we're only making one amendment. I wouldn't make an amendment and then another amendment and then another one. I would, do it as a package, and that way the legal form comes out as a package. Just, I don't see any issue with that.
Okay.
At least here.
And so the yes votes on the other pieces aren't going to affect the individual ordinance that we are reviewing and passing.
This is all based on the draft that we've already discussed, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so I would get rid of, vote accordingly so that you're getting rid of what you do or don't need. Duplicates, obviously you could just withdraw those. Things that you are not included in the draft, I would deny them, and then it would just be one cohesive draft because it's all going to fall on the same date. So it's all going to be the same amendment.
Okay, and then Councilor Bacon, you want to ask a legal question?
Yes, because the draft is simply a draft. There's nothing voted in it. It's just simply language. So it's not approved language before us. It's just a draft.
Well, it's not approved until it goes to the full council.
But that's what our discussion is for tonight.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the draft that's before us doesn't mean anything in and of itself. It's every order before us and whatever actions we take on them tonight that will create, which will inform the draft and cause it to be what we recommend.
Correct. So the draft should be a representation of what you approve tonight. And if it's not, then the draft will get amended tonight.
Correct.
Yep. Anything else? Councilor McKimmer, do you have another question for Crystal or about the
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. And then Counselor McGivern?
Through a chair to Crystal. Crystal, these are amendments to the zoning ordinance itself, correct?
Yes.
And it would be a 2/3 vote of the city council?
Crystal? Crystal?
Oh, sorry, I thought I was off mute, but right, they're all zoning changes. It's just language versus zones.
Right.
I guess they're text changes versus zone changes, but still
Correct.
under the zoning amendments. So, and they all had public hearings. So, right, they would have the 2/3 vote to finalize them.
I understand. So I think the suggestion is that you may want to separate the votes on some of these, even though it's one draft. The city council could still take separate votes, correct?
Right. No, I would definitely suggest the separate votes, but it's one cohesive draft. So I'm not going to draft a change for each item number. So you're not going to see the usual legal form of delete this part, add this part for item 9, and then delete this part, add this part for item 10. It would just be one cohesive draft that represents all of the yes and no votes accordingly.
Understood, but the votes would be separate. So my concern is because it's a 2/3 vote, certain portions of this could, if you took one vote, the whole thing could be defeated because X amount of councilors are against one item, but not all five items or all 7 items.
Right. So that would be whether or not you take it up as a package, which, could be done if you're hopeful that everything's going to pass accordingly, but separate votes is just going to create the draft. That's why you have draft language in front of you, and then we can edit accordingly depending on how the votes come out. And same with full council. If all the votes come through differently, then the draft would then get edited accordingly and then back for another vote.
Thank you. I know I'm not a member of the committee, but I agree with Councilor Bacon. Geez, that's 3 times tonight, Linda.
Wow,
I agree with Councilor Bacon that there should be separate votes for my concern.
I have no concern with that. I just don't want separate drafts because that would be
understood.
But I do want to highlight that item number 6 is the umbrella that was filed to allow us to address all of the other items in one vote, in one attempt. So we may not have amendments for some of the things here, and we may have additional amendments that are not represented by different orders here. They would be all under the umbrella of item number 6. So what I'm saying is we could deny individual things that we didn't consider, that we didn't include, but the things that are in the draft, if they're in the draft and they're in a separate order, there's a redundancy. And then finally, there may be things that are not as individual orders that are in the umbrella catch-all that were part of the discussion, part of the public hearing, but may not be the result of an individual item that was filed, other than the umbrella catch-all. So it's going to be, I think we should look at the document and figure out where the amendments are and what items they address. But you're going to need 2/3 vote on each of those items anyhow. Councilor Bacon.
If you're saying there's language in the draft that's not contained in these orders, then when it goes to the council is going to have to be informed as to what are the changes in the draft as the result of the public hearing. Otherwise, people won't know what is a change and what is the old language. So that's going to have to be made clear to the council if there are items in that draft that are not included in these orders.
The item number 6 is the umbrella that includes everything. So the entire ordinance was up for discussion. The entire ordinance was reviewed, and through the discussion, we brought up some of the items that were here listed as discrete issues, and then we decided to put some of them in. Some of them didn't make it in, but the single draft ordinance really refers only to item number 6, and then everything else is redundant either by deletion or by passage.
I don't think you're hearing my concern. My concern is that we're asking the city council to vote on a zone change, regardless of how the language got changed, whether it was through the public hearing process or through one of these orders that we're going to vote on tonight. The city councilors, by law, must be informed as to what they're voting on to change from what it is today to what it will be after they vote.
They will have a draft of the ordinance, of course,
but
they can have a red line copy if they need it.
They will need it because they won't know otherwise what they're voting on. Thank you.
Councilor McGivern.
The city council doesn't vote on a draft. The city council votes on the final proposed language for any ordinance change, whether it's part of zoning or not. And we have to have that signed copy by the city solicitor prior to our meeting so we can review it. And I think that's something that we've gotten away from and we got to get back on target with. But what I'm trying to say is I'm in favor of 9/10 of what's in front of this committee, but you need 9 votes. If you're going to hang everything on item number 6 and you don't get 9 votes, everything goes away.
Okay. So let's go through the document. Crystal, did you want to add something? I heard you sort of chime in.
Well, I was just thinking, you're correct in that number 6 is sort of all encompassing. And then there were specific, and that was, it appears to be the last proposed order that came through. So you've got some in February, one in June, and then that one was in November. So there's an all encompassing order that covers all the changes.
Right.
And the draft presented, red line or otherwise, will present all of the changes. And it was based on, all of these other orders that have come through. So if you wanted to withdraw 7, 8, 9, and 10, that's not unheard of. And then 6 would be what everybody's voting on. And all of the changes, the red line, the draft as proposed by the committee would then go to council.
Right.
And it would include every change encompassing all of the orders throughout the year that people wanted to see changes on. And if council wants to amend the draft so that certain changes make it in or certain ones don't, you're still only voting on number 6 because it's all encompassing. And, the draft, whether it's signed by me as a draft or, it's not we do that all the time where committee, presents a draft that has been worked on. Look at, the chicken ordinance. They went through 1,000 drafts. A final red line draft went to the full council, came back for further changes, and then went back. I don't see how this is any different. It's just, instead of everybody discussing multiple issues for an all-encompassing order, we have several orders that sort of pinpointed what changes they wanted to see. So there's a few different ways you could do it. You could vote on each one. You could withdraw all of them because they're redundant in that they're changing the ordinance according to number 6. But as far as, the draft getting signed by me doesn't happen until the ordinance committee votes it out. And then you get the signed copy that would go to the full council. And then in general, we try and send a red line when there is something this grand. I know planning and economic development really tailored this themselves. So I would need him to provide that, but that's an easy enough thing to do. We can do a document comparison if that's helpful for everybody, but it's something that the council needs to read before they're making a final vote.
Absolutely. And through the chair to legal, for example, in item 7 is an order fundamentally changing the special permit requirement. Fundamentally.
Right, in the draft.
Oh,
it also falls under number 6, where it says that they're going to be making changes to the permitting process. So number 7 is technically redundant.
It's only redundant if it's already stating in the draft language that we either are going to continue it through the city council or we're not going to continue it through the city council. So the clarification that I'm seeking and the votes that I'm seeking to take are, what is the language in the draft right now as we're sitting here as it relates to item 7? And some of us are going to be in favor perhaps of that and others of us will not be. And so that's what we need to clarify, and that's what the counselors need to understand on each of these orders. And if there's other language that was only in the public hearing that is otherwise not afforded to the city councilors in a clear manner, that they know it's something different. So I again ask that we go through each item, because, for example, in item 7, I'm in favor of keeping the special permit through the city council. My understanding is that the order was to take it out of city council. So if we're sitting here,
Councilor Bacon, if I may, just to sort of, highlight the fact that through the entire public hearing process, we were looking at this draft. We were looking at the changes in red. And for every time a change was in red, we also went back to the agenda and said, this relates to this order item number, and this refers to this item number. But the individual orders that we have filed here are not comprehensive to the changes that are in red based on our conversations. And I have very diligently been able to track back where the changes that have been in the red line documents refer to particular orders. I've done that all along the way. And I think working backwards is feasible. Working forwards to say item number 7, special permit requirement, and trying to figure out where that is it's just not going to be productive. And I do feel that in a very diligent way, I've been able to all along the way demonstrate that where text changes in red are happening in the documents that have been shared through the public hearings and the planning board. These relate to these orders, but again, there's a lot of things in here that are just text cleanup that are not necessarily in one of these other particular orders, but they do fall into the catch-all.
You're talking around my point. My point is that in the draft, it either says the special permit occurs through the council or the special permit does not occur through the council. And that is what I'm asking the committee to take a separate vote on. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll, I guess, get into the document and we'll take it from there. I'm going to screen share the document that I have. I might not be able to amend.
I'd rather take each item one at a time if
you're never going to get through the document that way. This is what I'm trying to explain. We can go through the document and we can, when changes appear in red, track them back to particular orders. Going the other way is not going to allow us to review the full document.
We can, with all due respect, we can do both.
So I will do the best that I can as the chair of this committee to make sure that everybody has the information that they need and that we could track it back to individual items.
So right now you have a motion that was made on the floor to take the items up as a package.
Motion's been made and seconded to take up items number 6 through 14 as a package. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
And I would make a motion that we take separate votes on each order in front of us relative to the draft that we will be reviewing.
I'll second that.
The motion has been made and seconded to take individual votes on each of the individual items as they come up in the draft. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, so I can't see. Here we go. Can you all see the document, and is it large enough for you? Should I make it bigger?
Yes, I have a small screen and it looks
bigger. I'll make it a little bit bigger perhaps. There we go. Okay, so 710 marijuana facilities. Purpose has been amended, and then it says, it is recognized that the nature of the substance cultivated, processed, tested, and/or sold by marijuana establishments have operational characteristics that require they be cited in such a way as to ensure the health, safety, and general well-being of the public. The imposition of reasonable safeguards and regulation of time, place, and manner of marijuana establishments is necessary to advance these purposes. And then, subject to the provisions of the zoning ordinances and MGL for chapters 40A, 94G and 94I, and the rules and regulations of the Cannabis Control Commission, marijuana establishments will be permitted to do business within the city of Holyoke that meets state regulations as established by the Cannabis Control Commission. So the amendment there is updating the MGL chapters to reflect the amendments that had been made at the state level and the rules from the Cannabis Control Commission. Nothing in this section shall be interpreted as regulating the growing, processing or fabrication of the products that are not regulated as controlled substances by the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission. Nothing in this section shall be interpreted as regulating businesses that do not bring cannabis or products containing Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol into their site. So marijuana establishments definitions, because we have multiple different uses, we are redefining the different sort of uses here. So marijuana establishments, ME, is a use operated by an entity duly licensed by the Cannabis Control Commission in accordance with state law that is authorized to engage in the licensed cannabis industry pursuant to a provisional or final license issued by the Cannabis Control Commission. Marijuana establishments include a marijuana manufacturing establishment, MME, medical marijuana dispensary, MMD, recreational marijuana retail establishment, RMRE, and marijuana testing facility, MTF. Marijuana manufacturing establishments, MME. A use operated by an entity duly licensed as a marijuana cultivator, indoor or outdoor, craft marijuana cooperative, marijuana microbusiness, medical marijuana treatment center, and or marijuana product manufacturer by the Cannabis Control Commission in accordance with MGL Chapter 94G and pursuant to all other applicable state laws and regulations that cultivates, processes, possesses, including the development of related products such as, but not limited to, food, tinctures, aerosols, oils, or ointments, transfers or transports marijuana or other products containing marijuana. So this is, again, just setting up the definitions of the different facilities and uses that are allowed. The cultivation and processing of marijuana in accordance with this definition is considered to be a manufacturing use and is not agriculturally exempt from zoning. Medical marijuana dispensary, MMD, a use operated by an entity duly licensed as a medical marijuana treatment center by the Cannabis Control Commission in accordance to MGL Chapter 94I and pursuant to all other applicable state laws and regulations, also to be known as a medical marijuana treatment center that sells, distributes, dispenses, delivers, or administers marijuana products containing marijuana or related supplies specifically for medical purposes. Recreational marijuana retail establishment, RMRE, a use operated by an entity duly licensed by the Cannabis Control Commission in accordance with MGL Chapter 94G and pursuant to all other applicable state laws and regulations that sells, distributes, dispenses, delivers, administers, or allows for the on-site consumption of marijuana, products containing marijuana, or related supplies for retail sales for non-medical purposes. Marijuana testing facility, MTF, an entity duly licensed by the Cannabis Control Commission in accordance with MGL Chapter 94G and pursuant to all other applicable state laws and regulations that test marijuana and marijuana products, including certification for potency and the presence of contaminants. And MTF includes independent testing laboratories and standards laboratories. So I think right here, we should pause and just note that we are, under the definitions, allowing for deliveries of recreational marijuana establishments. We allow for deliveries within the medical marijuana dispensaries. We allow for deliveries I don't see it here in the manufacturing. Oh, here, transports, transfers or transports. But it doesn't say deliveries there. But we are under these definitions allowing for deliveries, which would deal with item number 9 in the agenda, as well as item number 14 in the agenda.
Counselor Lisi.
Counselor Bacon, I don't see you, but go ahead.
Thank you. I did have my hand up. Thank you. So in that regard, the orders that had originally been written were around the medical. So through the public hearing process, we've also expanded it to the recreational. And this is the type of language change that I think the counselors need to be aware of. For my part, I would vote in favor of item 9 relative to deliveries. I might vote in favor of recreational deliveries, depending on what's going on with the delivery of other substances in the city and how we're going to treat those, such as alcohol and things like that. But I think it's going to be important for the rest of the council to understand that in both cases, the delivery language is new.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure. And I think what we can do is we can circulate this red line document or any changes that we make to this red line document to the full city council, in addition to the final legal form, so that people can compare and contrast. But, you know, as I noted in the beginning, like, we cannot capture deliveries for these other pieces in any other way. So on item number 9, I think, you know, in an effort to dispose of the orders the way that we voted to in an individual fashion, I'd like to entertain a motion that we approve item number 9 and adopt.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I don't think I heard Councillor Murphy, who's away at the moment, so I'll consider that a 4-0 vote. Okay, and then Councillor Bartley did at an earlier meeting ask that his item number 14 be given leave to withdraw.
Motion to give item 14 leave to withdraw.
Second, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so moving on. So applicability. This section applies to all marijuana establishments, which include the MMEs, the MMDs, the RMREs, and the MTFs, and any other marijuana establishment, ME, otherwise subject to the provisions of section 1.2 of the zoning ordinance. Permitted districts. So here the IG zones were in the original zoning ordinance, and presently being considered are the IP zones, allowing for the MMEs, which are the manufacturing establishments, allowed in IP zones by special permit of the city council. MMDs, so those are the medical marijuanas, and the RME, so RMREs, the retail establishments, may be located in IP zones by special permit of the city council if and only if they are co-located with an MME. So you can't have any of these medical or retail establishments that are public facing unless you have an MME establishment alongside of it.
So on that
under
language,
discussion.
Thank you. I am totally opposed to 7.10.4B. The IP zones are almost all entirely in Ward 5. There's a better and higher use than this. We have had multiple marijuana applications in the city. We are flooded with them at this point. I see no compelling need to expand the zone, and I am very opposed to this expansion in this language that was added in through the public hearing process without ever a separate order that came before the city council on an agenda or was vetted in committee in the typical process of vetting and debating and discussing orders. Thank you.
Okay, so
motion is strike 7.1.0.4B.
So the motion has been made. Is there a second for striking 7.10.4B, allowing for, the motion has been made and seconded to strike IP zones from the permitted districts. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
No, and I need some more information on this. Why are we opposing to this? Just because it expands onto Ward 5? Is that the issue? Through the chair?
I think the maker of the motion made those comments.
I'll respond if she's asking me through the chair.
Yes, please.
Through the chair.
My position relative to the IP zones has been that I believe we are oversaturated with marijuana applications at this time. And I see no operational need to expand the zones. It is just coincidental that almost all the IP zones are in Ward 5. But my position is that we do not need increased space or ability to entertain more marijuana business because we're already have approved more permits in a city of our size than probably any other city in the state. So I think we're pretty saturated with it, and I see no operational need to do it. Thank you.
So I'll just raise the point, since it's under discussion now, that when Marcos gave the original presentation, he noted that we are quickly running out of IG zone parcels that would be appropriate size for hosting more manufacturing establishments. And that we have also been outcompeted by folks developing in West Springfield, right over the border to where Ward 5 over by the mall is. And so we lost a project to West Springfield because we didn't allow it in the zone, and the adjacent zone in West Springfield is allowing it. So that's some of the reasons why they were asking we extend the manufacturing, and we could also say maybe we don't want the retail establishments happening in the IP zone, but there seems to be a need for additional manufacturing capacity in the city.
That information was never quantified to us upon my request. There was never any quantification, numbers of parcels remaining, lacking, applications that could not find a parcel. That was never quantified to us. It was just made as a statement.
Mm-hmm. So we can get that information on the motion, unless there's any other discussion. On the motion that we strike the IP zones by special permit, section 7.10.4B, all in favor?
No.
Aye.
No.
Any opposed? No. So
No.
it's a 2-3 vote on the 7.10.4B IP zones. So
motion to strike the retail sale in the IP zone. There is no retail going on in the IP zone in the city, to my knowledge.
So the amendment would be to strike sentence 2, MMDs and RMRE establishments may locate in IP zones by special permit if and only if they are co-located with an MME facility. I heard a second by Councilor Murphy. Under discussion.
If I can, just.
Councilor Murphy.
Okay, thank you. So I'm assuming that right here, we're just talking the RMRE, and that we would allow medical manufacturing and medical distribution, but not general consumption retail. Am I reading that correctly?
I interpreted the motion that was seconded to be the full sentence, the full second sentence here. I highlighted it in blue in case you can see it on the screen. But if you want to amend the motion to strike only the RMREs and allow the MMDs.
And I'm just trying, again, these are all these letters I'm trying to work my brain on. So I'm assuming MMD is just medical marijuana distribution.
Yep.
And RMME would be all kinds of marijuana retail. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely in favor of striking the RMRE. If it's a medical MME making medical marijuana, then I would be fine with the MMD because I think they kind of go hand in hand, but I wouldn't be fine going to the other one.
But
okay,
does that include retail?
So what Councillor Murphy proposed is that instead of striking the full sentence that we would only be striking the retail establishments and any marijuana dispensaries that were co-located as part of a cultivation manufacturing facility would still be allowed in the IP zone.
But a dispensary is retail.
It's medical dispensary as opposed to full retail.
But it's still retail. So my motion is to strike the second sentence because it's a retail use and action in an IP zone, regardless of whether it's recreational or medical. So just to clarify to Councillor Murphy, it is still retail.
If I, am I incorrect to think that in an MMD, they need to get a prescription, or am I wrong?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
It's prescription based. It's a higher concentration and dosage.
So, I mean, that's the only reason, Councilor Bacon, I don't object to that, only on the basis that they would have to get a prescription and they would go to the place that makes it. So, I mean, I don't think, I'm not in favor of just general retail distribution, but I could go along with the MMD because it's being manufactured there, and I'm assuming they could potentially. Go ahead.
We just approved deliveries, so they can deliver to anywhere.
Whether or not we approve deliveries, we could have deliveries from anywhere. So the passage of our deliveries does not preclude deliveries from anywhere else.
Right. So under discussion, my only point is that there will be access for people. That does not need to include a retail activity in an IP zone, which is not a retail zone. Thank you.
Okay, so if the motion is to strike the full sentence, the full second sentence that is highlighted on the screen here, is there in fact a second to that motion?
It was seconded.
Yeah, I'll still second it. I'll second it only because I think we should get a vote on it. Again, I would be much more inclined to vote to do that if I were just eliminating it from the RMRE, but I'll second the motion for now.
Okay, thank you. So the motion has been made and seconded to strike the full second sentence, eliminating the dispensaries and retail establishments in the IP zones that are co-located with a manufacturing facility. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. No, 2-3.
And
so that was. Go ahead.
Now I'm going to make the motion to just strike keep MMMD and eliminate in the RME establishments only.
I'll second that.
So I'm going to keep the MMD.
So we're striking just the highlighted section here.
Right.
The retail establishments.
Right.
Councilor Bacon, is your hand up as a?
I just seconded it.
Okay.
That's Thank
So
you.
on the motion to eliminate the retail establishments in the IP zones by special permit of the city council, if and only if they are located as part of an MMA facility. I just want to make sure I'm saying what I need to say clearly. So eliminating the retail establishment provision in the second sentence. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will vote with the order in order to preserve the rest of the order. However, I feel that I compromise a lot and I don't get a lot of compromises back. So we'll see what happens there. Any opposed?
5-0.
No.
4-1.
4-1. 4-1 in favor of eliminating the retail establishments from second sentence. It should be noted that this is still allowed by special permit of the city council, which refers to item number 7. So we can say that item number 7 has been complied with. I'll entertain a motion that item number 7 has been complied with.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Where are we looking at that, please?
So it says 7-10-4 permitted districts, and then the last few words of each of those, A and B, is by special permit of the city council, by special permit of the city council, and by special permit of the city council. So there was consideration of revising the special permit requirement, and we have revised that section.
Thank you.
So on the motion that it is complied with, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Murphy, were you trying to say something else and I missed it?
No.
Okay, any opposed? So moved, 5-0 on item number 7 in our agenda. Operational requirements. So, sorry, I didn't mean to go so fast there. Use: marijuana establishments may only use their designated square footage for the purposes of operating such an establishment as encompassed in this section. No marijuana shall be smoked, eaten, or otherwise consumed or ingested within the premises except at RMREs as defined. C, public-facing operations may not occur within the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. For the purposes of this provision, public-facing operations shall mean all public access, sales, and servicing to and from the facility, including deliveries, and an MME may operate for 24 hours. So this is, again, talking about the use. Public-facing operations, meaning anything with a retail component, dispensaries, must not operate within the hours of 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. However, the manufacturing operations may conduct business 24 hours. Under discussion, Councilor Bacon.
So under 1B, we have laws on the books that do not allow smoking in essentially anywhere, including public property in the city. So except at RMREs as defined would appear to directly conflict with our current law. So I don't see how we can amend our marijuana ordinance to conflict with our local laws. So I think we need to take that out of there.
Well, I think we need to ask Crystal what's going on here, because this is not redlined, and I would assume that this is part of the original ordinance since it's not redlined. And I think we need clarification as to what the legal language says here. To me, I do agree with you, Councilor Vagan, that it's saying that there's no smoking, eating, or consumption, ingestion on premises, but does leave an exclusion. So I'd like to understand what that means. So under suspension of the rules, if we could have Crystal approach us.
You're talking about 7-10-5
B.
1?
B.
1B, yeah, 1B.
Okay, hold on. I feel like this came up when we were talking about it. Originally.
I believe initially it wasn't allowed under the state law.
So 71051B is current ordinance. So any questions on that, I believe came up when we were initially doing the marijuana ordinance, and I think Sean weighed in on that. I don't have that expertise in front of me, but that is our current ordinance language.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I would note that the smoking of the marijuana is prohibited by our current ordinances, regardless of what this says.
Right, and then Crystal, if there is a conflict of sorts, how is it reconciled? Does the ordinance supersede the zoning that's happening here?
I mean, if this is in conflict with state law, then obviously it wouldn't be allowable as written.
I don't think it's in conflict with state law.
But if we have another, so you're asking about another ordinance as far as smoking?
Local ordinance, yeah.
So we have a couple. So we have smoking in city parks is prohibited. Smoking near city buildings is prohibited. Let's see.
And I think the other's governed by state law, right?
So section 46.6 is enforcement of regulations affecting smoking in certain places and youth access to tobacco. So it's regulated under the Board of Health. So they have in quote regulations affecting smoking in certain places and youth access to tobacco. The problem is the way that this is written, I can't see what they're
referring to.
Right, because it refers to just titles. So it talks about violations. So, smoking in non-smoking areas. I believe it was brought about that this was for tobacco smoking, but I don't want to quote that. That would be a Board of Health question.
I'm happy to go ahead and strike the except at RMREs as defined. Because I do think that through further discussion and, for example, item number 12 that allows for sale of marijuana products and consumption on the premises, we heard that they didn't have, I guess it's 94G, and we never, consumption on the premises. I have a question about these items, and so I think I was under the impression that they didn't pass, but they are referencing 94G here, and that was what was built into the earlier language as if it had passed, and so I think we need to get some clarification here. In the meantime, so that we can move things forward, I would be open to striking the exception until we can learn more, and if we need to introduce this separately.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to eliminate the exception. So after premises except at RMREs as defined. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So that's a 5-1 vote on the elimination of.
5-0.
Did I say 5-1 again?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think I'm saying 5-1 in my head, but it's just coming out as 1. 5-0 vote on the elimination of the exception. And I'll follow up with planning and economic development about that before the meeting, the full meeting. Otherwise, again, public facing retail operations will be closed between 11 and 8. And the other amendment is that manufacturing has the ability to operate at 24 hours.
So under suspension of rules, can I ask a question to legal about the 24 hours?
Yeah, of course.
So
Crystal, are you there for us?
Here, go ahead.
If we expand the MME operation to 24 hours with the language of may, will that allow the council, if there are concerns in the public hearing from abutters, depending upon the location of the entity, that it would allow it to either be a yes or no, dependent on the application?
I mean, you could set conditions like we've done on in other situations, you know.
I'm only remembering that
I believe our hours that we put into ordinances sometimes cause problems because I think that we then allow conditions that are outside of what the ordinances say. We've done it a few times. So the 24-hour may, you know, be open for 24 hours, I think is conditional.
Okay.
But we would want to make sure that these aren't arbitrary and capricious decisions.
Right. But I'm thinking it just in the instance where maybe somehow it would be near a residential apartment block or something.
Correct.
You know, where it might become a legitimate concern relative to noise or this or that.
Right.
It would still allow us
those
that
hours
judgment to limit that in if there was a legitimate concern.
Right. And you could propose language added to this sentence that clarifies that, you know, at the discretion of council based on location, or trying to think of other instances, but we could expand this sentence so that they're aware that they have the ability for 24 hours, but those hours are really left to the discretion of the council.
Would you recommend to say the language adding at the discretion dependent upon location, or would that be, I'm just trying to find a way that would not be arbitrary, but could take into a legitimate consideration.
Right. And I don't know how far we want to get into an exception, you know, for location, or is it,
right,
maybe it's not the location, but maybe just the abutter, you know, maybe it's competition that doesn't want them open and that becomes an issue. And now it's based on location, quote unquote, but not really. So I don't want there to be, it's a very slippery slope to have it at a discretion of anyone, but I mean, it says that they may operate for 24 hours.
It doesn't say
prepared. I would be prepared to have people operate for 24 hours to avoid any issues. But you could always
But right now, nobody is operating for 24 hours.
We have one manufacturing operation that has 24-hour use.
Well,
because I think deliveries in and out can't go from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. or something like that, but the internal operations can function.
Well, that may be a loophole, but it wasn't the intent of the ordinance. But anyway, okay. I just, as long as it's May, then there would be flexibility in some unusual circumstance that we would not be required to do it if it was problematic, legitimately problematic for some reason we haven't thought of.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to move on from here to physical requirements. Sorry again, my mouse is fussy with this big font. Physical requirements. All aspects of marijuana establishment must take place at a fixed location within a fully enclosed building. No outside storage. These are all parts of the original ordinance. So I'm just going to go down to E, where there is an amendment. All signage shall comply with 935 CMR 500, 105, Section 4, Cannabis Control Commission regulations, and Section 6.4 signs. I believe 6.4 signs is our own ordinance. And I think that the Cannabis Control Commission is also outlining regulations for how they can advertise. And do you have your hand up, Councilor Bacon?
I was just wondering if we even have a sign ordinance anymore.
I think the last action that we took was putting a moratorium on it. I don't know if we have anything else. Crystal, do you have anything to?
I don't. Our sign ordinance is stuck in limbo. This references 935 CMR, which is state. So they have to comply with regulations about how they advertise and things of that nature. And then it also references our sign ordinance, but it references the section. So they're only going to have to comply with whatever actually exists at this time or at any time. So it's a good way to have it written, because as it changes, it'll change within this ordinance without having to specifically open this back up.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Location. So here we have a number of amendments. So I'll be reading this whole section. An MME shall not be located in buildings that contain any residential units, including transient housing such as hotels, motels, and dormitories, provided, however, that MME, so these are manufacturing facilities, may be located within such buildings located in the Cannabis Business Overlay District. An MME shall have 0 buffer from any other use as listed in table 4.3, table of principal uses. Now here's a sidebar note. We would have to create through a public hearing process the Cannabis Business Overlay District. That is something that we might want to just put on pause in terms of adopting, considering that it would need a public hearing for the zoning, the creation of the zone itself, the overlay district and the zoning itself.
Whole new project.
Mm-hmm. So I think that this is good language and we can use it when we file the order to consider such. But as far as the overlay district is concerned, we have not had a public hearing on that piece. So we could create the language, but it wouldn't be useful until we had created the district, or we can not pass this amendment and have the conversation in tandem with the zoning.
So we're just taking out the red part of that first paragraph.
Yeah, just take out the language because we haven't voted on putting it in.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is that we could keep the language and it would be sort of like useless until we created the district, or we could take it out. And what I'm hearing you guys saying is that we should take it out until we have the district created.
Yes, just to make it.
So let's strike after dormitories, turning dormitories into a period and striking the rest of A. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 0. So moved. So I'm going to say that that's a 5-0 vote. Let me see if I can find a good place to keep this. So this is 3, location A. Provided.
3.
5-0. Okay, so B is that a retail establishment shall not be located within 500 feet of any pre-existing public or private school providing education in pre-K, kindergarten, or any grades 1 through 12. So this is a retail facility shall not be located within 500 feet. However, for the purposes of this section, measurement between marijuana establishment and a school shall be done in a straight line from the geometric center of the establishment public entrance to the geometric center of the nearest school entrance, unless there is an impassable barrier within those 500 feet, or as measured along the center of the shortest publicly accessible pedestrian travel path from the geometric center of the establishment entrance to the geometric center of the nearest school entrance, whichever is shorter.
This is awfully complicated.
So it's saying, as the crow flies is how the typical measurement would be taken. But if there's an impassable barrier, like buildings, we will not be able to use the distance between the center to the center as a straight line, as you know, as we say, the crow flies. Instead, you would have to map out the shortest possible pedestrian travel path. So
I just have it near a school. That's
yes.
The bottom line.
Okay. Unless there's any objections, I'm moving on. Okay. Issuance, transfer, and discontinuance of use. There's no real changes here. It looks like just some typos and capitalizations that took place here. 7, 10, 6, application procedure and requirements. Number one, this is a big change to this section, that there's a pre-application meeting. So an applicant for a marijuana facility must attend a pre-application meeting set up in cooperation with the planning department. The applicant shall provide adequate information to describe the nature, scope, and site of the proposed development, a brief narrative, and a basic layout plan. 2, special permit application requirements. So an application for a city council special permit shall include the following. And so this is to create sort of the checklist. I think Councilor Anderson Burgos mentioned this at least one of the meetings, if not multiple, where we were getting a lot of incomplete applications because it wasn't clear what needed to be submitted. So this is the solution to create somewhat of a checklist. So here's the checklist. 2, original application forms and a designer certificate. 10, full sets of the plans drawn to scale at a plan size no larger than 24 by 36 inches for each of the reviewing departments, and 5 copies of reduced size plans for the Ordinance Committee, preferably on 11 by 17 inch paper. Plans shall be prepared by a registered surveyor, engineer, or architect, and shall include the names and addresses of the record owners and design professionals, and include their signatures and seals. And then finally, for the application requirement, we need a digital PDF file of the plan, and all other required submittal materials shall be submitted at the time of submission. So that is also to.
If I can, I just need to let you know, I gotta go. I just got an emergency call for the city, so I gotta go answer that, and I'll try to get back.
Yeah, so sorry about that.
So I'll try to get back as soon as I can.
Thanks, Council Murphy, Acting Mayor. Yeah, so this is to make sure that we have digital files and that they're all submitted at the same time, as opposed to revisions coming in piecemeal. Narrative contents. So this is distinguishing the application requirements from the narrative content and describing what type of information that we need there. So it's a description of all activities to occur on site, including but not limited to the following as applicable: cultivating and processing of marijuana and marijuana infused products, on-site sales, delivery of marijuana and related products to off-site facilities, off-site direct delivery to patients, distribution of educational materials and other programs or activities. A separate narrative shall be provided for each activity and labeled as such. So any objections to anything here? If not, I'm moving on. So this is all part of the original ordinance. F seems to have some amendments in it. A written notice from the chief of police shall be submitted to the city clerk, stating that an acceptable security plan has been reviewed and approved. The security plan shall include the location and details of the security measures of the site. And this plan is submitted to the chief of police only and is not submitted as part of the application, because of course it's the security plan and we don't want it out there for public consumption.
And that's what we've been doing process all along.
Right. The cost of the application, the cost of publication for any and all required public notices shall be borne by the applicant, making that crystal clear. So the marijuana establishment site plan application requirements is just a header change. Locust plan was already required. A survey plan is amended here. So a current survey plan of the entire parcel signed and sealed by a registered surveyor is now required. Historic surveys older than 10 years or those that are known meets and bound alterations or discrepancies will not be accepted. So we need to have current plans. I think that this is to avoid conflicts in the way that land ownership and other deeds and easements may change over time. The photometric plan is clearly outlined here. Also, it was always required, but I don't think it was broken out as a particular section. So a survey of the site illustrating the proposed lighting solution by light level, foot candles, or for any new lighting to be installed at the proposed facility, including associated pole and fixture details. So that shouldn't be new to us, but it is new in terms of the way that it's broken out. Here's the review procedure, special permit. Upon receipt of the complete application, the city clerk shall forward a copy for review and comment to the building department, fire department, police department, engineering department, water department, board of health, planning board, and the Stormwater Authority and Conservation Commission, if applicable. The department shall review the application and provide comments back to the City Council within 21 calendar days. City Council shall, if needed, confer with the Public Safety Committee for review and comment. Should the applicant provide revised plans and revision list to the city clerk on a day between their original complete submission day and the day of their first public hearing, the 21-day review period will restart from that date. So here, I don't know if they really mean the Public Safety Committee. I don't think that we should, I don't think we should specify a committee. I think we should just say provide with an appropriate committee if necessary.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I will make the motion then that we strike public safety and replace it with the appropriate committee for review and comment.
You make the amendment.
So that amendment was made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. That's a 4-1 vote for 5 review procedures.
4-0, right?
Yes.
Is Council is not here? Yeah.
Yes.
He put on his other hat.
Sorry, strike and replace, appropriate. Oh, you know what? I am in the right sort of document. Oh no, it's a PDF, so I can't do it. Okay, B, marijuana facility site plan review. Upon receipt of complete application, the planning board will review the application on the procedure set forth for section 10.0 major site plan review of the Holyoke zoning ordinance and any relevant provisions of MGL chapter 40A. So this is asking for site plan review for in those instances where the major changes are happening. We've seen one, for example, that had so many changes to the underlying site that it had to go over to site plan review. That was the Main Street one, but this is just stating that if it's necessary, it will have to go to the planning board for site plan review. Councilor Bacon, is that your hand up for this?
I was just looking at it and they're both referring to major site plan review. I know one is because it's new. It makes it look like all of the applications have to go under major site plan review. Is that accurate? I just don't know.
I think that they are asking for everything to go to site plan review so that I think in some ways our conditions can be enforced and overseen.
Okay, but this is basically what they've been doing. We're just formalizing it.
It's not. They have not been doing site plan review unless there is a project that is of a size and scope that would trigger the site plan review. And if you remember, there was that Main Street location that fell under site plan review because it was such a drastic change from what had been taking place. Here, however, they're looking to make site plan review a formal part of the approval process, the procedure review.
Won't that make a lot more work for them, or is their position that they're essentially doing it already?
It's a good question. I don't think that they feel that they're doing it already. I think that they're looking to do it just based on the conversations to ensure that there is compliance with the conditions that we set forth
down the
because,
road.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, because we apply, they don't even have their license in hand many times, and then they go through the construction, and I think this is to ensure that there is a review of the actual project as opposed to you know, just letting the applicants do what they think their plan says.
Okay.
And then new construction, in cases of new construction, in addition to the requirements of this section, see section 10.0, major site plan review of the Holyoke zoning ordinances, the applicant may need to file with the Stormwater Authority a stormwater management permit application per the stormwater regulations, which is something that has been triggered already, but not codified in this formal way. Findings. So this is basically how we should come to our decision, and it's not a change. It's just sort of outlining the things that we should be looking at in order to make our recommendation. Enforcement. Again, it was in the original ordinance, but not broken out as a specific section that is easy to spot and read. And I think that this is the end of the document. Okay, so going back into my notes here, item number 11 was that we were going to allow marijuana manufacturing facilities to operate on a 24-hour basis. We can say complied with, that's item number 11. So I'll entertain a motion that we say that item number 11 has been complied with.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm working backwards. So 14 was given leave to withdraw. Items 12 and 13, I think we need to just get some clarification on. So I think, can we move these forward without a recommendation so that we can? These are about the consumption on premises, and this is what we had the big question mark about. Because again, I was under the impression that these did not pass in the House bill that was proposed. I don't think that it was. I don't think that these provisions passed, but it is referencing 94G, and we do reference 94G in the beginning of this document, and so I'm just a little bit unclear.
Should we leave them tabled pending clarification, because we don't have the language in the draft, right?
Sure. So right. So well, I guess let's leave it tabled, and we will ask for this to be put into legal form, and we'll review the final legal form next time around.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are going to stay tabled. 11 we already dealt with. Special permit in the downtown residential zone. We heard arguments against that, and instead the proposed overlay zone was something to consider for another meeting. So I'm happy to give item number 10 leave to withdraw.
Motion to give item 10 leave to withdraw.
Motion has been made and seconded to give item number 10 leave to withdraw regarding the downtown residential zones. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. That's 5-0. Again, working backwards, we approved by a vote of 4-0 item number 9. We did change the buffer.
I thought we took that out.
We let's just go back so that we're clear here. I do believe that it is 200 feet unless it's a retail establishment, and that's the 500 feet that we were talking about with the crow's fly.
You just.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were trying to do. And the only one that would not be allowed within 200 feet would be the retail.
Hang on though, because any RMRE shall not be located within 500 feet, but we took out A, so I don't see 200 anywhere.
Right,
I thought it was.
so you know what, we did not, we deleted everything following dormitories, and I didn't notice that there was a third sentence here. So this third sentence says any MME shall have 0 buffer. So manufacturing use shall have 0 buffer from any other use in the table of principal uses.
But that's out. That's out. We took that out.
We did take it out. I don't think that I realized that there were 2 sentences there. I thought it was 1 sentence.
Right, but hang on a second, because on the order that we're on, item 8 is reducing the buffer from 500 to 200, not to 0.
Right, so we can still amend this.
Right.
Right. So I would like to define the buffer zone, and I'd like to go with the 200 for all manufacturing uses.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, as long as we're doing retail 500.
Yeah, the section B is the piece that says 500 feet and then also tells you how 500 feet will be measured.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so on the motion that we restore the third sentence of section A, but amend it to say a 200-foot buffer zone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. So that's a 5-0, 5-0 on the amendment. And then on the item number 8, that we have reduced the buffer zone for manufacturing to 500 to 200 feet, that it be complied with. Is there a second for that motion?
Aren't we saying to approve it?
Well, what we did, so just
all right.
Yeah. We amended it out. We amended it back in. The vote was for the amendment. And now I'm asking that in order to dispose of item number 8, we say it's complied with. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0 vote on complied with. Okay. And then the last thing we have here is item number 6. Which is the umbrella. So I'll entertain a motion that we send this to legal for final legal form.
So moved.
And then we're going to send it back here, right, to review.
Yeah, to look.
Yeah, and we'll also take up that those 2 questions that we had regarding items 12 and 13, and then also the limited building stock for the IG zone.
IP. Yeah. Right. IP.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on the motion then that we send to legal for final legal form, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. I hear a 5-0 vote there.
Like to make a motion to take up item number 15.
Let me just see something. I think we could deal with a handful of these as a package.
Yeah, 15, 16, and 17, I believe.
And
18.
Wait a minute. Is one of these something that has to be, Councilor Hernandez, was one of these something that was written in error in some way?
Yes, Madam Chair, the removal of the handicap for 50 Walnut, that is something that, I mean, it didn't come through my, to me directly. And I know that we were removing a handicap sign at 250 Walnut, and that already was approved. So I don't know if there was a confusion, but I did go physically and try to find, and went all the way down to Walnut, and there's no handicap parking there anyway to remove. So, I mean,
we give it
leave to withdraw.
I'll second that.
Second.
On the motion,
Did we take them up yet?
Let's do them individually because there's
Okay.
too many, I think, moving parts to these right here. So on item number 15, is there a motion to take it up for discussion?
So moved.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to take up item number 15. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is filed by Councilor Hernandez that a handicap sign be removed from 50 Walnut Street. As we heard through the prior discussion, this was filed in error somehow, and so we're giving it leave to withdraw, perhaps without prejudice, in case we do need to review it again.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I'll second it again.
On the motion to give leave to withdraw without prejudice, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Items number 16 and 17 as a package, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor and any opposed? So moved. I need to get the recommendations from Jeffrey. So Jeffrey, if you could just tell us what the recommendations from the Commission on Disabilities is.
Oh, yeah, Don Welch went and looked at the Highland Ave location and did approve it. Measurements were sent, or the order was sent to Bob. He did the measurements, which were then passed on to Crystal for the legal draft.
Okay. And then same thing for 17 for 251 Walnut Street?
That is correct.
And that's an approval as well?
That's an approval as well.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion that these two handicap placards be approved per the recommendation of the Commission on Disabilities.
Second.
I'll move. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. And then 18 filed by Councilor Hernandez. It's a removal of a handicap sign from 32 Clinton Ave. Do we have the legal form for that? Or we don't need legal form for that. It's
No.
just a removal.
There
So
is legal form. Bob said there are actually 3 spaces in the parking schedule for this one spot. So he recommended deleting all 3.
No, we're talking about item number 18.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Can you clarify that there's 3 handicap parking spots at 32 Clinton?
Yeah, he said there are 3 entries in the schedule for this one spot, so he recommended removing all 3, and the legal language, there is legal language to reflect that.
Oh.
It's just cleaning up the book, right?
Yeah,
Right,
it's been asked for so many different times from different people that we have multiples on the books that need to be cleaned up.
Okay.
So on the we need a motion. Councilor Hernandez, do you want to approve the order and delete the related ordinances?
Yes. Should I say that in a form of a motion? I make a motion to delete the repetitive entries on this order.
Great.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Before we go, can I just ask the question? So there are 3 and they're identical? 3 in the same spot?
There's a slight variation with one, and it was Bob Parent's. It was Bob Parent's sense looking at the schedule that they were all for the same spot.
Just different people over time, probably.
The only, and I certainly, if we don't need them, that's one thing, but I'd be concerned that we are taking something and, we tried to develop a process last year where we were going to review who's got a permit for, who do we establish the ordinance for? Obviously, it's not specific to their spot, but it's designed because of someone's need. And I just want to make sure we don't eliminate something and find out, well, we just took one that really was being needed and they are very close and maybe they were done at the same time, but I'd just be a little cautious on that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So, wait a minute. So can I, as a point of clarification again, so there's 3 different requests from people to remove this one spot at 32 Clinton, right?
No, it's your one order is when we look at the ordinance to delete the 32 Clinton Avenue sign from the ordinances, we see 3 duplicates there. And so Bob Parent is saying that we should eliminate all 3 of these entries because they're in duplicate to one another. And the one person who seems to be asking for it to be removed presently doesn't need even one there. And we have 3 entries for the same spot. Crystal does have her hand up and may be able to help here.
Right.
So let's entertain a motion to have legal approach.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Crystal, I see your hand up. Can you help us here?
Sure. So what happens is Bob actually goes out to the site. When we're getting measurements, he legitimately goes to the street and will measure. And so sometimes, which is why we don't do the legal form. We always get engineering measurements because he'll go out and say, you know, he measures in what a typical space would be, but that puts it, you know, in front of a tree. He'll move it a couple of feet either way or 10 feet so that it's a legitimate space and it's going to be accessible. So the same thing here, when he goes to remove a sign upon request, there's one sign on the street, but when he goes in the schedule, it may say a handicap space 20 feet from the corner, 30 feet from the corner, 40 feet from the corner. And he's standing in the street going, I only see one sign, which means all of these entries are invalid because either the sign never went up or it, you know, at some point it was made, but the sign never went up. So now if we're removing it, he's like, okay, all of these entries don't make sense anymore. We should just go ahead and remove these. We've been doing it for a lot of different schedules in the ordinance. So over time, we're sort of cleaning it up without making the engineer literally walk the whole city and say, okay, these ones are still up. These need to come down. These are extraneous. We did it with bus stops, I believe. We've slowly gotten rid of bus stops and things like that. So it's not that we're removing signs that are there and should be there. He's literally standing in the street and we have 3 entries that just don't make sense.
Okay,
so it's just cleaning up the schedule.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this item then? Okay, so I think that we did have a motion that was made and seconded to remove the corresponding ordinances for the handicap sign at 32 Clinton Ave. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. And finally, item number 19, a motion to take up item number 19, filed by Councilor Anderson Burgos.
So moved.
Second.
And motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Order that handicap spaces on Ivy Ave be condensed to 1 space in front of 8 Ivy Ave to be located on the east side of the street, 90 feet north of Dwight Street. Under discussion, the maker, Juan Anderson Burgos.
Yeah, so what I ended up doing was I went to Ivy Street, and for those who don't know, Ivy Street is a very, very short street. I ended up knocking on every single door in the building, and I visited with the residents in that general area, and I found that there were only 2 handicap parking spaces that were being used, and the 3rd one wasn't. And in the middle of that, we found out that there were one of the handicapped on the east side of Ivy Ave was, it had a placard number, which it shouldn't have had anymore. Like they shouldn't have specific to a specific person. So they're striking that out and leaving the one on the east side of Ivy Ave as a regular handicap parking, and then removing one on the west side out of the 2 that are there, but the books show that there are 3. So we're actually removing 2 and leaving 1, even though there are 2 physical handicap parking spaces there.
And I know that Odette was calling around with some concerns, and Councilor Bacon, did you want to speak to this order?
Yes, thank you. The part of the problem with the order is that it's not in order. So the people that have applied for the handicap spaces that were approved through the disabilities and the process that we just did on the last 2 have the right to have those spaces there until such time as they're no longer there. They put in a request that they no longer want it or need it through the process we just went through on the ones that we eliminated. But we can't initiate to eliminate other people's approved handicap spaces. And we also can't say to a homeowner, we're going to put a handicap space in front of your house. They have to seek to have the space from us. I mean, that's the process that we have to go through. I don't see where we have the authority to do what item 19 says.
To the chair, may I?
Councilor Anderson Burgos.
So the people that lived on the west side in the building, they're located on Ivy Street, Ivy Ave, they no longer live there. The gentleman that is now living there just moved in a year ago, and those parking spaces, those handicap parking spaces were for the individuals that used to live there, but they've since then been gone. The one located at 8 Ivy was requested by the owner of that house. So though they are there, there's just too many handicap spaces for that very short street. There are, right now, the books show that there are 4, but physically there are 3. One of them has to be changed to a regular handicap, which is the one located on the east side of the street, and then one physically removed from the west side, and 2 removed from the west side in the books. Do you understand? I don't want to confuse anybody.
So through the chair, if I may.
Councilor Bacon.
This order needs to come in like all of the other orders with specifics relative to what is being removed. If the book is being cleaned up because 4 are listed, but 1 isn't real, then we can clean up the book. But what I do not believe we have the authority to do is to consolidate handicap spaces that have been properly approved. We need to, space by space in the book, deal with each one as it is in the book. It is stipulated by at least one resident who called all of us that those 3 spaces are used on a regular basis. And the person further stipulated that she had to go park in a gas station parking lot in the winter because there wasn't space available.
Sorry.
This is the 3rd time this has been before us. We've been around and around with this. I think this is at least the 3rd time we've taken this up in the last 3 years. And I really think it's almost starting to border on harassment of the resident at 8 Ivy. I mean, this is a service and a determination that's made through the Disabilities Commission that recommends to us on these matters whether we're establishing them. So if we want to remove them, I think we need to go by the book, just like we did all the rest of them. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon.
Well, without going back and forth, I want to interrupt the back and forth, but I would like, as the chair, to offer some clarifying comments here, because what we did for 32 Clinton Avenue is we just removed 3 spaces according to the ordinance, because the ordinance didn't comport with the reality of the physical signs being there. So what I hear is going on in this instance is that, again, the ordinance books are out of sync with the physical signs that are on the street. The ordinance books says that there's 4 spaces, and that we are actually only using, there's only 3 signs on the street presently. We have
Correct.
4 on the books, and we
Correct.
only need 2.
Right.
We need to retain the one at 8 Ivy Ave, and then we need to retain another one on the opposite side of the street.
Correct.
And I do believe Councilor Anderson Burgos has done his due diligence to talk to all the people that are on the street utilizing the spaces. And I think I mean, in the last 3 orders, we just approved and then at the same time deleted. Like, we have the ability to do this.
May I add, I have done my fair share of knocking on doors. It's a disrespect to me that I have done all of this work, and for someone to say that I'm in the wrong here, it's totally false. I have done my research. I've knocked on doors. I've talked to Don Welch. I've talked to the engineer. I've had my fair of research on this, and I would never stiff somebody in the wrong direction. I would never do that. And I am telling you that is not needed. Like I said before, there are 4 in the books. There are 3 physically. One is coded incorrectly and needs to be fixed, and the other one needs to be removed physically, so that way there's a fair share of parking spaces between all the residents that live in that area. It's a short street. I don't see anywhere else in the city that they're going to be saying, hey, this is a long street. Let's put 4 handicap parking spaces, even though we don't need it. It's not fair to the other residents who have cars that have trouble in the snow as well. Now, and to be fair, the person that lives on 8 Ivy Ave has their own driveway as well. So I don't know why they would have an issue and why they would have to park in a parking lot across the street when they have their own, they own the property and they own that driveway and they can park their car there. So with that said, please trust me. I've done my research. I've done my homework. I've talked to all the residents. I've talked to everyone. I made sure that no one's left out. And I drive there. I've been driving there past couple years just to make sure. And there's always only one where the 2 handicap parking spaces are. There's only 1 car there at a time. Only 1. I've never seen 2. Sometimes not even 1. That was it. Sorry.
Councilor Murphy and then Councilor Hernandez.
Yeah, 2 things. First, I'm going to make this suggestion that at some point, all those signs got put up for a specific person, and the city clerk has a list of those names. And so I would just suggest that right now, we review those names, have her send communication to those, which is the way we would set up last year to remove handicap signs, was to, all right, we passed it for John Jones at whatever the street is in number. So we would send John Jones a communication, and if John Jones is no longer there, then that handicap sign would be removed. So I would just suggest that we ask the city clerk to look at the information that's on Ivy Street. Which persons did we pass handicap parking for? Send them a communication, and if they're not there, then I think there's your option to remove things. But the other aspect here would be, and again, I respect Anderson Burgos, Councilor Anderson Burgos, but I just got a question because I'm confused here. Because are we going down to 2 handicap spots? Or are we going to 1?
2.
Okay, but then your order indicates that it's going to be 1.
No, that's
well, it says it's going to be condensed to 1 space.
But that's the order, in the same way that, last week we considered an order filed by Councilor McGivern from 2018 that considered, $125,000, salary for the mayor, $90,000 for the clerk. It's the order, it's the way it's written. And in the process, amendments are made. I mean, we just amended, the action on the order to remove the handicap spot from 32 Clinton Ave, to remove 3 handicap spots from 32 Clinton Ave. Like, things get amended and worked on in the process, and the orders just stay the same. So we worked with the engineer. The counselor did, the outreach to the neighborhood and the community. The counselor found out that the individuals who were assigned 2 of the handicap spots that are going to be eliminated are no longer there. I mean, he just said that he did all that work and he did that research. He identified that these 2 spots are no longer utilized because those 2 applicants are no longer there.
So if those 2 spots are no longer utilized and there are only 3 spots, then are we not saying there are only going to be 1 spot left?
No. One is on the books and one is assigned. One is on the books only. One is on the books and has a sign. And then there's 2 other spots that are on the books and have signs.
Yeah. All right. I won't support it tonight, but I would be a lot more comfortable if we had the specific addresses that we're talking about removing, and then you know, I mean, assuming if there are 4 ordinances, they must come to a specific street address, right?
Right, and so, you know, instead of holding things up, I mean, maybe it doesn't matter if we hold things up at this point in time because they've been held up forever. What we could do is, I don't have a copy of the legal form, but perhaps maybe Counselor Anderson Burgos, you have a copy of the legal form, Crystal or Jeffrey, and we could put it up on the screen and review the actual changes.
Yeah, I can do that.
Chair Lisi.
I'm sorry, Counselor Bacon. I didn't realize that you were looking to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you. So in the prior one, we were cleaning up the book that had 3 entries for 1 spot. In this example, there's 1 entry in the book for which there exists no marked spot. So that would be a cleanup similar to what we just did on Clinton. If we were to eliminate the book for that 1 spot.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. So your contention is with the removal of a sign. Sure. You know what? Let's, Counselor Anderson Burgos, I would say to make things neat and palatable to everyone, we have the legal language. Can we give this order leave to withdraw? We don't require a public hearing for any of these. And perhaps we could get a new order filed so that it's clear for everybody what's going on that reflects the legal language that we have before us. Oh, you're on mute.
It boggles my mind that something so simple as this is a simple, like, just removal. It's not a big deal. And I'm wondering where the concern from the Ward 5 counselor is coming from. Where's this concern coming from? Like, for me, I've done my research and it's a disrespect for all the hard work that I put into this. And I'm over it. Like, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. We have bigger fish to fry, and we're sitting here discussing a handicap parking space that has been a nuisance to residents who I've personally spoken to. I do not get this. This is there. No, I do not agree. I think that we should just remove the handicap. I've done my homework for the past couple of years, and this has just gone far enough. And usually I have room to give, but no, I'm done. I'm sorry. No.
Counselor Hernandez. Counselor Hernandez was in queue prior to Counselor Anderson Burgos speaking, actually.
He's just addressing me personally, so I'd like to respond when she's done.
Okay.
Counselor Hernandez.
Can I ask, as a clarification, isn't one of these signs has the number specifically on it of the placard of the person or person that used to be there? To the chair, to Councilor Burgos.
I need to step out for just a minute. So I'm going to allow the vice chair to take over for a moment.
So Councilor Burgos, isn't that the case that one of the handicaps has indeed one of the numbers, which is not supposed to be like that anyway?
Yeah, it's not supposed to be specific to a specific.
Right.
It's
so
if someone lives there, yes.
Okay.
If lives there and requests it, that person no longer lives there. As a matter of fact, the person that's using the only one out of the 2 parking spaces that are on the west side of Ivy Ave, he never even requested for one. He said that when he moved in, luckily there was just 2, and he chooses the one closest to his door. That's it. There's no other person using that handicap.
And so what I've learned here through this process today is that this city is completely out of like sync with all of these signs across our streets and cities in our wards. And you have worked diligently on doing your homework and on speaking with the residents that you represent in your ward. And now here we are debating on this after you did all of this work. So, I mean, I support your, and I thank you for this work that you have done. And I mean, I will be voting on this with you tonight.
Councilor Bacon?
Well, I'm waiting for the chair to come back, but
she left the vice chair.
I'm responding to a personal direct question from the vice chair as a member of the committee. The reason that I'm speaking on the issue is because I was called by the constituent, and other counselors spoke to me who had also been called by the same constituent. I believe she called each counselor. This has come up a number of times on the street. She has brought in past meetings photographic evidence of people using the handicap parking spaces. This is the third time it's come up. We have never before had objections from the people on the street about removal of handicap spaces in the history of the committee. And yet this is the third time we're having a discussion on this when we have an objection from the neighborhood of one of the people who is using the handicap space, who has provided evidence to the committee of photographs of the spaces being used. And so, yes, it's true that people do come down and apply for a handicap parking space. And by the documentation of the ward counselor, a person left the apartment complex, which also has parking behind the complex, and a new person moved into the complex that does have a handicap placard. So that person shouldn't have to come down to us again and apply for a new handicap space, as long as there's an adequate space there that the person can use. And that person was fortunate that he didn't have to come down and go through the process, because the old way of designating it to a person had been eliminated. So happily for him, he didn't have to come back down. So we know that he's using one space all the time. We know the woman who's objecting to the elimination of the space uses one space all the time. And so that leaves one space on a street with a multi-apartment complex available for people who aren't using it all the time. And so we have never historically had objections on these. They're usually completely without objection, completely without controversy. And I've been in the room for all of these discussions and debates, and I agree, we shouldn't be discussing it or debating it. If there's an objection and we can clean up the book to get rid of the fourth space that nobody wants, then why don't we do that and get rid of the fourth space? Because we all agree 4 is too many. Thank you.
Crystal has her hand up. So suspension of the rules to allow legal to speak.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Crystal?
So I was watching the legal form scroll down, and I mean, a lot of these handicap submissions in our ordinances are not valid. So we can't have handicap parking for specific placards. So some of these need to be amended anyways, or deleted altogether. We can have spaces, but they can't be for specific people. So like the one on the screen right now says a specific parking placard that needs to be amended anyways. It's another cleanup issue. I mean, certainly we'll do whatever legal form is required based on the vote of the body, but some of these do need to be changed anyways. And so that's something to take into account when figuring out how to lay out this street.
So I would like to entertain a motion that we send to legal the draft that's before us for a final legal form that we could review at our next meeting.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. The point being that if we put it into legal form and we have a piece of paper that has all the amendments on it, we can show it to the folks that have been disputing the changes, explain it to them in a way that makes it clear, because we can agree that the ordinance, the way it's written, it does not reflect what's going to happen, and this may be clarifying to get it into a legal form that could be used. The motion has been made and seconded. On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
So it's a 3-2 vote that it be put into legal form and reviewed at the next meeting. And that concludes our agenda for the evening.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Thanks for all your hard work tonight. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.